you believe it, mate? Can you believe we've been doing this for 5 years now?
I cannot believe anything that you say to me, you lying bastard.
What? Where's this coming from? But in all seriousness, oh god, yeah, we've been doing this for 100 episodes now.
Bloody hell. Yeah, 5 years. It doesn't feel like 5 years. I remember when you sort of started and pondered the idea of it, and I was like, oh yeah, I can join that. And I went through all of uni doing it as well. I started before I went to uni, and then I graduated, and we're still doing it.
Yeah.
So that's quite fun.
God, I still remember there was a time when you seriously considered stepping away from it because of your uni.
Because of uni, yeah. Because I was at uni, I was like, I can't, like, I didn't have any time to do anything. I was like, I'll do it after, but now I can't do anything. But yeah.
I even remember, if you actually go back on some of the episodes, I think it was season 3 is when you start to have a few lesser appearances, and that's because, among other things, because it was 2020, but also because you were in the thick of your studies at the time, and we could only get you for a short amount of time, so we just got you for 2 episodes, and then around after that, things were like getting very busy with both our lives, and you did briefly step away for a bit, but then we did work things out in the end, and you stuck around for, thankfully, the end game.
Yeah, and lots of Doctor Who and Harry Potter things towards the end. Yeah, well, that's pretty much exclusively what I've been doing, isn't it?
Yeah, they pretty much became your bread and butter.
Yeah,
and makes sense, honestly.
Well, it's my specialist subjects, so there you go.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because if you look back at those episodes, you could easily see where that could have been your last episode. Yeah, could have had just 3 seasons, but I'm honestly very glad and happy that you got to stick around for the long haul.
Yeah, and here I am, still here, being dragged unwillingly.
Oh God, I am glad though, because we started this together, and again, I'm stealing from my own quotes here from the anniversary post I did, but Grey Owl wouldn't be what it is without you guys involved, because you, Lennon, Calm, Hawk, Dom, Flower, and Toby, all of you all had a part to play in bringing a voice to the channel, really.
Literally. That's what we brought. We brought the voice.
Yeah, and it couldn't have just been me, because I'm sure everyone would have gone bored of me after 5 episodes.
I think it could have just been you, but like, I'm glad I'm not glad it isn't, but I'm glad we've been included as part of your empire.
Don't say that. Don't say like that. No, I'm flattered though. But yeah, at the end of the day, I still remember. I've actually got it on my notes here just to remind myself. But the first day, the specific date that I came up with the idea of doing a podcast series was the 23rd of May, 2018.
Bloody hell. I don't even remember being in 2018.
Yeah, I don't even remember the details either. I just know that's a note that I had written down since back then, and I'm glad I archived it, because it kind of gives you an idea of how far back we kind of pitched this concept, and we kicked off in August, and now here we are 5 years later with 100 episodes and 6 seasons. Yeah,
and it's nice that we've been able to come towards the end and being able to do new Who, to come to the 60th. It's been like a nice way to sort of cap it all off, because it's like we went through a bit of a shit Doctor Who time, and I mean, people might say we're still in that, but personally I don't think we are. So I think it's nice that we can end with something to be positive about and to look forward to as well.
In a sense, I feel like it's an interesting case study in a sense, because when you look at when we began, it was between that time when Capaldi had left and we were awaiting the arrival of the 13th Doctor. Yeah. So there's a level of trepidation, but we were very
optimistic.
We were very much optimistic and hoping for the best. And you can see a gradual decline of oh no, what the fuck, as the Doctor Who episodes go on, and then the bloody Timeless Child happened. We've made so many videos explaining why we did not like that shit storyline retcon, and since then, Doctor Who's now in a place where it's on the direction to possibly get better. Again, there's some stuff that I feel like is still holding it back, and we will briefly touch on that. But honestly, all things considered, I feel like this is a good point for us to end it on, considering we're at another point where we're waiting. We're in between the arrival of the next Doctor in terms of his debut episode, because we've actually already seen him. Again, we will get to that. But yeah, nice milestone point to end on.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah, 5 years, 6 seasons, 100 episodes. I feel like we've earned to stop here at this point.
Yeah, 60 years Doctor Who.
Yeah.
5 years of us. I mean, to be fair, that's like not too shabby.
Oh, yeah.
5 years compared to, yeah.
Yeah, and considering this wasn't funded for anything, we literally just had the apps and the editing tools we had that you can get from Google.
Yeah, I bought a shitty little like microphone from Amazon. I was like, I need something rather than just using headphone mic.
Yeah.
So I got a little, not the best, but like compared to yours, but it did its job.
And even then, my microphones, like, they're not top tier stuff. I mean, if you just listen to some of the audio in certain episodes, like, I mean, in general, there's like a few episodes where we just use our phones because we didn't have the good enough mics at the time. And again, it kind of shows really at the end of the day what you can do with just a bit of passion and enthusiasm and an idea and a concept. And the fact that we've been able to do that for 100 episodes, that in and of itself is an achievement in my book. That we did this as a hobby and we stuck to it and we got to make this. And I'm so proud of that, and I'm so proud of all of you, really.
Oh yeah, man.
But enough self-love. Let's actually talk about the main topic of today, which I think has been a long time coming. And yeah, it's finally here. We've seen all 3 specials of Doctor Who's 60th anniversary, and we're here to talk about it.
Woohoo.
So, kicking off, we'll start with a bit of a prologue. So, you saw the Children in Need special, the Destination Skaro.
Yes, I did see that.
So, what did you think of that off the bat?
But when I watched it without knowing any context, I thought it was really, well, not really good. I enjoyed it a lot, but like RTD said before, it's not going to be a sketch, like a sketch comedy. I'm like, okay, cool, that's great. We don't want to, like a cool little mini scene from Doctor Who would be great, but not like a comedic one, sure. But then it turned out it was a little bit, like, obviously because it's Children in Need and all this sort of stuff, it had to be a bit funny, and then they cast a comedian in it. So like, I didn't really mind the humor as much. I wish it wasn't like heavily reliant on it. But I thought it was really cool that we saw Davros before, I guess, an accident, was it? I don't even know the origin of Davros. But I thought it was cool that we see him just as a guy. And I'm like, okay, cool, this is what he looks like before. He looks like how we know him. I like that. And this is like the genesis of the Daleks. That's cool. And we see like a more classic looking Dalek. And I think it's funny that there's like, this claw that was supposed to be, like, everyone takes the Mickey out of there being a plunger. It's like, oh, it was a claw. It was supposed to be like a really horrifying thing. And then the Doctor just put an actual plunger on it. I thought that was quite a funny retcon. And I was like, it's fine. Like, I don't really care that it, like, for canon reasons, like, I didn't really mind it because I thought it was quite funny. But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was when I watched it. But then you find out the context of it. And then I was like, oh, I don't know how to feel about that.
Do you want to explain the context?
Yeah. Yeah, so the context was after they had the mini episode, they did the new Unleashed, so it was like the Doctor Who Confidential, but like the new one. And RTD had a big long spiel about not wanting to represent evil characters as being disabled, and I completely understand the viewpoint of it. Like, sure, don't do that in the future. Don't like correlate someone being disabled and having a disability with someone being evil and being a villain. I understand that. However, Davros, I never considered him to be disabled. Like, I know obviously he was like a bit
disfigured.
Yeah, but I don't consider that being necessarily like, well, especially the wheelchair element. RTD was like, oh, he's portrayed as being a wheelchair user, and I'm like, I don't think he was. He's in a Dalek. No, it's not a wheelchair.
Yeah, I can confidently say, being a Doctor Who fan of, again, however long it's been since 2005, so pretty long time.
Yeah.
We never, and I grew up watching Classic Who as well. I never saw Davros as a wheelchair character.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he was just his character.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought of him being a villain who would happen to be like in some form of a wheelchair, that never crossed my mind, because what I cared about was the character and what he did for the world and the story of Doctor Who. So this correlation really just feel like out of nowhere, like what?
Yeah, it does. It does feel a bit out of nowhere because like he didn't feel that way before when he brought Davros back and he recast him and they put him in the wheelchair. It's not a wheelchair; it's a half a Dalek. That's the thing I find about it is that he's the creator of the Daleks and he's in a Dalek. Like he's not disabled or you know handicapped as as the Americans say. He is a Dalek because he created the Dalek, so he is one as well. That's always what I thought. I'm like, okay, it's not a wheelchair; he is half of a Dalek, and the rest of him you can just see. Like I never considered it to be a person in a seat.
Yeah. Getting into my thoughts, I'm most of the similar to you, where I feel like this was a special made to just be released for part of children in need. So it makes sense in some form they would take steps to not be too like, I guess, offensive in a way.
Yeah.
And because when I first heard his explanation where he said, "Oh, we don't want kids to associate that with evil,"
Yeah.
I thought for a second, okay, kind of makes sense where you're coming from. But even with that context, it still doesn't make sense, and if anything, it's worse because you're putting out this narrative that people in the past and even now used to associate people in wheelchairs as villains. It's like, first off, have you seen X-Men?
Yeah, exactly. There are so many characters who are in wheelchairs or who are disabled, who or have some sort of thing like that, who are seen as like very sympathetic or the good guys. And as far as I'm aware, I can't really think of many characters who are specifically disabled. Obviously, like you get a scar on your face and you're a villain.
Occasionally, but then even then, they're never defined by their appearance.
It's always
just
like,
about how good they are as a character, or how manipulative, or how cruel, or how evil they are. Because there's more to them just the scars or the disability. But to have Russell come out of nowhere, honestly, this definitely feels like similar to a situation that happened with House of the Dragon, where the show itself is great, but if you watch any of the behind the scenes stuff, which I haven't, but people like Mauler and a few other YouTubers, they've highlighted how if you actually watch the commentaries and the behind the scenes stuff, like behind the episodes, they have context. They interpret certain scenes in the show completely differently, and it basically makes it similar thing, where it's like it's inserting real world politics into it that makes you realize, oh shit, that's annoying. Whereas if you actually just watch the show as is, it's perfect. It's almost like they didn't even watch the show and they're talking about something completely different.
Yeah.
So this kind of feels similar, where if we'd just seen this special, and if it's like Children Need Special, and if Russell just came out saying that, oh, we just wanted to do something different with Davros, and we just thought, why not explore a bit of his history where we didn't see him disfigured? I feel like that's a perfectly enough explanation that people can justify. But the fact that he had to come out and say, oh, we didn't want to offend people in wheelchairs, but we feel like people shouldn't be represented as evil, I feel like that's so basically surface level bad pandering.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's sparked up negative talk about it just before the 60th special started airing. So that wasn't a good thing. Why do that now?
It put in my head that I was really looking forward to the 60th, and I was like, okay, cool, it's RTD's back. This is gonna be great. And then that happened, and I was like, oh, he's this. I didn't realize he'd be this type of a person for pushing
agenda
things when it's like it's not really related to him. And it's never been a problem before. And he's like, this is a problem, we think, let's change it. And it's like, well, you thought that, but no one else had that thought in their head. Like, I think it's a bit... I wonder, like, the processes that came along when they were talking about it that actually sparked in their head why they thought this was a thing. Because no one's ever thought that, have they? Like, we've never thought Davros is a disabled character. So I wonder why they... What sparked in their head that he was.
Yeah, and also, to add to the situation that made it even worse, there were a lot of fans that talked about this again on Twitter, or X as it's now called.
Yeah.
So a lot of fans pointed out this flaw, even people who were disabled. And one comment, again, I can't remember which one it was, I'll have to put it on the screen, I guess, but one comment who specifically stated how, oh, I'm disabled, I never associate Davros like this, or something along those lines, and basically saying, again, it'll be on screen for context, but he was basically just complaining about, why'd you do this? And Russell's response was tough, or something to that extent. And it's like,
okay,
first of all, why are you why being that petty? Why not just log off Twitter completely at this point? Because I feel like it just exposes people in their worst areas, I think. So even if he was like this, at least he would have saved face, and people could have just interpreted it themselves or whatever, or just enjoyed the products as is. But the fact that he did this and then just responded like that, already set up red flags
it's a bit
for going
petty.
into it.
Yeah.
If anything, it was just really petty. It made it really clear that so you've become like this now. You've pretty much, what's the saying? Drunk the Kool-Aid or something to that extent in Hollywood now, where they feel like agenda or some level of activism needs to be like in your face.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's ways to do it, mate. And you proved you could do it over 10 years ago with your first era. So this is not a good look for you going into your second era, if I'm being blunt about it.
I saw a similar, literally the same sort of thing, but it was on Instagram, and it was like someone commented on that video saying like, are you going to now not portray Cybermen as they are because of people who have prosthetic limbs?
Yeah.
And he like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he commented on it being like, oh, like, you know, cry about it, but not like that. But he was like, and I'm like, why? Like, I don't understand where he's coming from with this. Like, why he's actively engaging with that. Like, I can understand him searching for like feedback, but then he's like, anything that goes against what he's said, he's like completely, you know, having a go at them. It's like, why? Please stop. You're the head of this. Don't go this low, like this low hanging fruit sort of thing.
Oh God, yeah.
It starts a very a lovely positive introduction to the 60th, doesn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, that bad nugget out of it aside, all things considered, I think the starting special was okay. I think the concept is quite nice. It was cool to see Davros in some form.
Yeah.
I do agree though that I think the humor wasn't the best. That one line about the Doctor having to say, "Take half an hour ago, I was this brilliant woman," and I'm like,
no,
clearly trying to cope. Clearly that's not true.
When he said that, I was like, mediocre at best.
Yeah. Like, have you seen the Jodie era? And that writing, god damn it. But those blights aside, I don't think it was terrible.
No.
But I do think it wasn't the best.
It didn't stick the landing. It didn't stick the landing like the TARDIS did.
Yeah.
Didn't in that special as well.
Yeah. And considering what we heard from Russell afterwards in the outside of it, it just didn't help expectations going in.
That's a quite common thread. If you watch all of the Unleashed, he has, I think, at least per episode has like some sort of we didn't like this, or this is a thing that we want to address. And it's like, every single episode now has got like him explaining why he's made it. It's like, oh no, we didn't have this last time. Why are we having this time?
Yeah.
But we'll get into the specifics of that per episode.
Yeah, so kicking off with the official proper 60th special, the first one, the Star Beast. So, would you like to go first? What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, sure. So when I watched it, I really did enjoy, you know, obviously seeing David again, seeing Catherine, seeing them sort of, they were like everyone's said this, but they slid into their roles like as if they hadn't stopped playing them. So they were really great. I enjoyed it for the most part. You know, seeing Sylvia again. I love her character, and you know, we got to actually meet Sean properly. I loved him. They were a great family dynamic. I liked Shirley Bingham, the scientific advisor number 58, I think it was.
Yeah, 150 or something.
I think it was in the 50s. It was like, yeah, when she I really loved her character. She was like a nice new addition to unit and was quite sassy and like I love it what RTD does, and I found this in his original run especially with Jack. I love it when characters who didn't know this particular incarnation of the Doctor knows exactly who it is just by context clues. Like, she didn't have to be like, oh, who are you? Oh, the new face. She like instantly knew who the Doctor was, and they instantly started talking. I really loved that dynamic, that she was like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I really liked her character. The plot, I thought it was. I found this for the first one and especially the third episode, they're quite rushed. Like the Doctor landed in Camden and instantly found Donna, and then was instantly started, and then like the spaceship crashed, or didn't, but like it happened so quickly. I thought it was going to be a bit like Partners in Crime, where like the first half of the episode was them sort of missing each other. I thought it was going to be a similar thing again, but it was just like, no, we're straight into it, and I wasn't the biggest fan of that because I didn't feel like it developed quick enough, or like there was no build up or anything. It was just sort of happened. The actual like story, it was a bit run of the mill. Like, it was fine. I enjoyed it. I liked the Meep. I liked the Wraith the Wrath.
The Wraith Warriors.
The warriors that look like stick insects. They were fine. The effects were cool. Like all it felt like there was. You could definitely tell a bit of a step up in budget on this one. Wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, and I guess you weren't either. But overall, I watched it again, and I liked it better on a second viewing. So overall, it's fine. Which is not a great start, is it? Like, you don't want it to be fine, you want it to be amazing. But like, obviously, expectations were high.
Yeah, I agree. Same for me, really, because honestly, I've seen this one twice, and I still, being honest about all three specials, I'm still trying to kind of come to grips with how I officially feel. But I can say for sure that this episode was definitely a return to form in terms of its writing, because the writing and how everyone carried their performances and how the dialogue was written, it was definitely leagues above anything we got from the Chibnall era. And I'll take that as a win.
Yeah.
I was able to at least watch a lot, 50 to 40% of this episode, and feel like this feels like old Doctor Who, where the writing's quite snappy in dialogue, and you've got the characters that are likable enough to enjoy what was happening to them. But there were, unfortunately, areas where I think that Russell did falter with the story and the decision making, especially when it came to real world politics, because they made the decision to heavily feature Donna's daughter Rose, who was a trans character, and I think honestly the first few scenes she has, I think she kills it. She's really good, and I really like the dynamic she has with Donna, trying to portray a mother who's being there for her kid no matter what. And I think those early parts of the story were really good. But what I think kind of took it down a peg was when it became overtly in your face, agenda serious, mainly when it came to the ending, because that bit, I'm just thinking of that bit at the end when the Doctor is just trying to talk to them about the meta crisis, and then what's their big response to that? It's a shame you're a man now, because if you were a woman, she would understand. Just let go of power. Just let it go, and we choose to let it go.
Yeah.
And then you've got that very cringe bit where the music's going up, they're holding hands. That Bingham character was just lightly blowing up.
I thought that was quite funny. The specifically the Shirley bit, but the rest of it, not a fan at all.
Yeah, honestly, I just felt annoyed at that point. It's like you're just feeding into this moment that just feels like so superficially annoying, and I feel like, first of all, such a stupid line to say in the first place, considering if you know the Doctor, which you should, Russell, you wrote this bloody bit, why say that to the Doctor? Of all the people in the universe, the one person who has been a woman or lad at this point, he would know what it means to let go of bloody power. This is the guy who fucking saved the universe so many times. The guy who gave up the presidency of Gallifrey several times.
Well, the Doctor is such like a selfless character that he's tried to give up, or like he's tried to kill himself or sacrifice himself so many times to save the people, so he should know. But back to Yasmin Finney's Rose. I liked I knew that she was a trans actress, and it was interesting that that I didn't realize they would actually go into that. Like, I thought she was just going to be in it as the Donna's daughter, and they sort of wouldn't discuss that, but they did. And I actually quite liked the part of it where Donna and her mum are talking about it, and like they're trying to be relatable, and like they're a bit confused, or Donna's grandma's. Rose's grandma's a bit confused.
Yeah, I loved that bit.
I liked that bit a lot. It was quite. It felt very natural and sensitive. It
made the characters feel natural, which is not like nothing that we got from the Chibnall era.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, back to that quickly. When you said about that, what I find about the old RTD era and the Moffat era is that you could, even if it was a bad episode, you would enjoy watching the characters, because like Capaldi is always my favorite Doctor, and I enjoy watching him even if he's in a bad episode, just because he's such a great such a great character and actor, and the writing for this dialogue and for the character is great. But even if the plot isn't, and yeah, it's back to that again. Like with this, I'm not, some of the episodes or some of the elements I'm not the biggest fan of, but then I can enjoy the characters being in it. So like that's great. But Rose, as an actress, I didn't think she was great. Like when at the beginning she was introduced, I don't know if it was played for comedy on purpose, because I found it quite funny. But like when there was the plane crash, the spaceship crashing, she was like, "Oh, look, a plane! Look, Mum, look, a plane!" And then the doctor was like, "It's a spaceship." She's like, "Oh, Mum, look, a spaceship!" And then oh, it's crashing. Like there was really not much emotion put into it, or like it felt, whenever she was like had any dialogue, it didn't feel very. I didn't think she had the best performance.
I agree. I feel like she had good moments, but I do agree in retrospective, because I'm thinking of that bit when I think this is even a minor bit really, but when they're in that truck and they're being taken to the meat ship, and Donna's having this moment, this very sentimental moment where she's hugging her daughter, and she's like very sad, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you might die. I wish we'd just been somewhere else." Donna is clearly, the actress Catherine Tate, she's putting her all into it, and Yasmin Finney there, she's just like leaning her head against her mum, but she's just
no
like
expression.
no expression whatsoever.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Like there was a lot of serious things, and like Donna was like, "Oh, I'm so stupid," and like she was like really self-deprecating, and Rose was just not reacting.
Yeah, I think a simple act of just closing her eyes, leaning into her mother's neck, I feel like that could have sold it a bit more.
Yeah.
But that it just felt like, just don't react to that bit at that moment. It's like R2D just said, just lean in there. don't react.
Don't exactly. Well, Rachel Talalay was the director for the first one.
Yeah, maybe she wasn't on set that day.
Yeah. It was the different director. It was the unit, the second unit.
But yeah, unfortunately, she had moments where I feel like she didn't do good. But I think she did have moments where she did do good, like the bit with her and her mum when they're having that talk, and there was a few bits with the meat which I thought were okay. But again, there's even that bit later in the episode when the doctor's talking to the meep, and out of nowhere she just goes, "Are you assuming that thing's gender?" It's like, that delivery. First off, that delivery wasn't exactly the best. Second,
it felt quite clunky. That part of it just felt a bit forced. Like pronouns and that sort of thing. That's like a whole thing now that I don't really want to get into. But like, I felt that in Doctor Who it wasn't necessary.
I feel like it comes down to subtlety, because R2D can do subtle, and he's proven that with his previous era. And I think if they just had a moment where the Doctor goes, "Look, I'm the Doctor," or no, don't even start with that. Just have the Doctor say, "Who are you? What's your name?" And the Meep just goes, "I'm the Meep," and just literally just say it as if, "I'm the Meep," and the Doctor could go, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm the Doctor. That's how I present myself." Something as simple as that could have made it subtle, but like, okay, that's what you're saying.
Incredibly clunky. That was just like, let's just stop what you've just said. You've just said a really bad thing that I like. Please, how dare you say that? We asked at first. It's like, well, the Doctor has been around for so many years and he understands like biology more than anyone. Like you even notice that in like to skip quickly to the next episode, the Doctor can tell someone's gender based off of a skull in space with a spacesuit on.
Yeah, and there was scientific explanation of that, because like you could tell how bone structures for certain species for humans are different.
Yeah,
so that makes sense.
But like the Doctor could tell this random alien that he would have never met. He knew exactly, because he said, "Oh, it's a she." Like he knew it exactly, but then someone's like to the Doctor, "You can't assume this creature's gender." But the Doctor just knows things. Like it felt. Like, I can understand it being in a different show, but in Doctor Who, it doesn't feel, for the Doctor especially, because he's such a smart character, it doesn't feel, it feels quite patronising to the Doctor.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is necessary. Like, sure, there's a whole thing with pronouns that, like, it needs to be handled sensitively, because it does matter to some people.
I think at the end of the day, it really just depends on how it's represented.
Yeah, exactly.
This does feel in line with the category of in your face, and that's just going to turn a lot of people off, because unfortunately there are people who just downright dismiss it. I'm of the opinion, like, if that's how you feel, if that's how you want to live your life, you do you, live your life, be the best version of you.
Yeah, exactly.
But in terms of entertainment, when it comes to TV, where it has to appeal to a lot of people, I feel like you have to be smart. Sort of like with kids' TV. You have to not treat the kids as if they're kids. You can't be lazy. You have to be treating them as equals, really, like as a human being at the end of the day. Shocking. And I feel like subtlety was needed for a lot of these episodes, these specials, really.
And it wasn't there. No, I agree. And it just felt a bit like she was instantly offended just because that's like the thing now.
Yeah. If anything, it just doesn't. It makes you not as appealed to her.
Yeah.
Because you've got great moments with her and Donna where you're like, oh, I'm loving this dynamic. And out of nowhere, you assumed my gender. Like, okay, I'm sorry. It's like, oh, I feel bad now. Thanks for making me feel bad on an anniversary occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, there's a whole other department of topics to discuss over that. But at the end of the day, I feel like what was important was how the story handled it, and I feel like it did all right, but those moments definitely hindered the experience.
It did feel there was a lot of times where you've taken out a bit just because you're thinking about real world things that like it's difficult to come to terms with, but it's like instantly taken out of the episode for me.
Funny enough, I think we talked about this off air, but you actually pitched a concept they should have saved for the next season. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, so basically we haven't really actually talked about the ending. So like the way that the meta crisis for Donna was resolved was by, so it turns out that because Donna had a daughter, the meta crisis sort of passed on to Rose, and so that was one part of it. But the other part was it because they were female, they can just decide not to have it anymore. That was literally the plot. Like, I'm not like being facetious and nasty. They were literally, because they were women, they can decide not to have this affliction that might kill them. I don't think it's a great ending.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they came about it is that because Rose's character, which they said Rose's character is non-binary, but she's not. She's a trans woman. That's not what non-binary is. Non-binary is when you're not anything. You decide not to be either male or female. But Rose is specifically a transgender woman, which they don't understand what they're talking about, even in the wokeness. They don't understand what non-binary is, which I think is ridiculous. Okay. But because allegedly Rose's character is non-binary, then she can, I don't know, what was it that she could choose, like, because she's non-binary, the Doctor's non-binary, so they could
basically inherit the power or something.
Yeah, something like that. So I didn't like how that ending was used, that plot point specifically for the meta crisis. But I did think that the idea of a character being non-binary was being the like savior of, or like being the resolution. I think that's actually a really clever idea for a different story and a different plot line. Like what I suggested to Kobi was that say that there was a creature or an entity that was non-binary, or that didn't really relate to a particular thing, and then they met a non-binary human, and then by the end of it, somehow, because that person's non-binary, they understand more on this particular thing, so that then it's resolved, or something like that, to the effect of how they handled the meta crisis, but not the actual meta crisis itself.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree. I feel like the whole wrapping up the Donna Doctor story element of this was really a really bad direction.
Yeah.
They did it worse than what we predicted they would do, because the hopeful outcome that we thought was going to happen was the Doctor Donna situation would be prolonged throughout all three specials, and it would resolve in a tragic ending where Donna dies.
Yeah, where what happened is what's supposed to happen is that she gets her memories back and then she dies, or like she has her memories but then it kills her.
Yeah,
there needs to be some sort of what did I continue to say? What was my, like, on the last couple episodes? I was like, the biggest thing, consequences. There was no consequences.
Yeah, and I feel like that was the best hopeful outcome. One other outcome that I wanted at first, but you convinced me otherwise, actually during it live in an episode once, was that I hope they bring her memories back, but then they have to put it back into her to forget. So we have a free special arc where she gets to remember, but then she has to like say, oh, it was all a dream or something. But the Doctor is changed by this encounter or something. And I thought that would have been equally not the best, but in terms of the actual one we got in the end, I feel like this doesn't.
This is not a great way to, like. That's what everyone was worried about. Like, we were like, great, Donna's back, the Doctor's back, the RTD's back, but the thing we don't want to mess with was the Doctor Donna, the meta crisis, because that was such an excellent ending and so horribly sad. They were like, they have to handle it with tact, and make it meaningful, and not just bring them back for the sake of it, and then forget about this horrible thing. But they sort of did. They literally were like, let's let it go. And it kind of felt like the RTD didn't have an actual resolution for it, so it was just like, it's sort of like a message to the audience being like, just let it go, it's fine. We don't want to end this, so we're just going to say that we don't have it anymore.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's not. It's because that was such a powerful storyline and a tragic one.
I agree, but the thing that I must stress is that we don't like it because of the plot, not because it includes a trans character. Like that's what I really don't like about a lot of Doctor Who commentary about this, is that they don't like it because there's a trans character in it, or people complain because of a trans character. That's not a problem at all.
No.
It's great. They need to include it because Doctor Who's always been progressive. That's great. Include that and handle it in a great way, like they started to do in this episode. That's not the problem we have. It's not because of a trans character. It's because of the writing.
Yeah, I mean, again, take away the clunky bits with Yasmin Finney. I think she did a serviceable, execution with her character, all things considered, for her first episode. And I would have loved to have seen more of her.
I think we might generally see more of her.
Maybe, yeah. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
But with what we did get, I feel like it's definitely soured a lot of people into. It's just when it came to the execution of a lot of their messaging at the end of the day. And I think the biggest takeaway for me of what I didn't like about this special was just the fact that they just undid the Dr. Donna stuff, because I expected again, call this like, oh, this was just your expectations being way too high. In my defense, I feel like this was justified a possible route they could have done, and at the end of the day, I think they should have gone with where what we thought could happen was that the Doctor will come back. It will be a mystery about the Meep storyline from the comics, but the through line of all three specials would be the Doctor is suddenly somehow regaining his face. He'd look at his screwdriver and it's suddenly different now, and the TARDIS is suddenly different, and now Donna's back with her memories, and that would be the mystery of episode 1. That would continue into the third special, and then the second special, and then the third special would reveal that it was actually the Toymaker, who is a celestial being who can manipulate reality. It would reveal that he was messing with reality, changing things, and one of the early theories for the 3 specials was that it was going to be about how nostalgia was the villain, like how something along those lines, where the Toymaker wanted to relive the glory days of the Doctor, and that would be meta in the sense that it's literally the Doctor and Companion who are the most iconic and popular, and I feel like that would have been a stronger story, and the resolution to that predicted story arc would be that in the end the Doctor would defeat the Toymaker, but at the cost of losing Donna, whether she died or whether she just had to lose her memories again. And I feel like that even though it's bare bones and surface level concepts, I feel like that's a powerful story you could have told with the catalogue of characters you had from that we did have. But what we did get, they just wrap it up in this first episode, and I personally feel like it wasn't good. It definitely took away the impact of the Dr. Donna outcome from the series 4, and it definitely just, in the general, made these 3 specials feel just more like season 4B stuff, as opposed to a big occasion story arc for the 60th anniversary of Who. And I think there are some add-ons that I want to add. That I didn't like. I agree with you in the sense that some bits of this special felt rushed, because the bit when Donna gets her memories back, which is great. I love her first response when she gets her memories back. But the moment they stop the ship from destroying London, out of nowhere, the cracks just suddenly start sealing themselves.
What's going on with that?
Why couldn't you have just animated the fire in them just going out, but just keep the cracks open?
And then the next episode would be some sort of damage control, in the background, having to fix everything.
I mean, considering the London was going to shit in the 3rd episode, it would have made sense to have cracks in there still, but added to the aesthetic. But they decide to randomly close for no reason.
Exactly. When the cracks were starting, I was like, oh my god, that's a massive crack. This is going to have serious ramifications, for infrastructure in the next couple episodes. And then I was like, it just got back to reset button, basically.
And then literally that scene afterwards, when the door lifts up and Donna suddenly stops collapsing, it just felt very sudden. She suddenly collapsed. She's in a dying pose. The Doctor's speaking confidence to her, and then she just slumps her head as if she's dead. And I'm like, what? That's suddenly so quick. And again, there's moments of it that work, like the Doctor's reaction of just taking a second to hug her. I feel like that was great, but just the whole execution of her just suddenly dropping down and merely just dropping her head down. There's no, if they just prolonged it, because I feel like just the simple act of having her just lying on his head in his arms, then gently close her eyes and then slightly slump her head. I feel like small actions like that could have made it feel a bit more natural, as opposed to as if it's on a pantomime where it's you say your bit, then immediately drop dead.
Or the bit in the end of The Dark Knight Rises when she just sort of in the van.
Yeah.
But we'll put that on the screen. I didn't. I agree with that, but I didn't necessarily feel that when I was watching it. What I did feel about that particular part of the episode, though, was when the soldiers came in, and they were like, the Meep was like, kill them. She said, kill them, or the Meep said, kill them. Sorry about that. Sorry to offend the Meep. The Meep said, go and kill them. The three of them with guns walked into the room, pointed at the doctor, and said, we have orders to kill you. Why are you telling him? As if he's the authority over you. And then he was like, go on then, do it. And then they were waited, and then the Meep said, kill them. And then they reloaded and didn't kill them. And then Rose came along and made them all better. But like, there was a good minute when they were in there with them, pointing their guns at them and just being like, we're here to kill you. Did you know that? What do you think about me coming to kill you? Why are you telling him? Just kill him.
That's the moment the clunky dialogue took over.
Yeah. But that clearly was just for the doctor to say something like dramatic.
Yeah, funnily enough, I feel like, again, if they just cut that bit out, just came in with their guns ready to shoot him, and then the thing happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it would have made more sense. And saying that, actually, I genuinely thought in that second that was meant to be some involvement from the toy maker, because
stopping them.
Yeah, because leaning into what we pitched earlier about the possible plotline could have been. I generally thought when we saw that entity, is that going to be a third party that's going to be involved in the big free arc specials? And then once they came in and saved the Doctor, for a second I thought, is this going to be the through line for free specials where this entity, maybe it's the toy maker, maybe it's a pet of his or something else. I feel like that was going to be the through line, like, this entity might be in the next special as like the antagonist, or maybe it will be like involved, and then it's revealed in this first special to be associated with the toy maker. But in the end, it's revealed to just be like part of Meep's involvement for some reason, and then Yasmin's character just Rose just comes in and disperses it from the guards
and saves the day.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, with the first special, I think it did good enough, but those gripes and considering what it did with the Dr. Stoner storyline, those are going to weigh heavy on it going forward.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I think it was good enough, but it still has faults in it that could have so easily been fixed. Mm-hmm. Again, with the Rose stuff, I feel like she was a good enough character, but I feel like she was given clunky dialogue bits and stuff that I feel like is just not going to appeal to a vast majority of people, especially in terms of execution. I feel like she should have, not her character specifically, but they could have easily saved the concept of a non-binary character. Giving, as you pitched, they could have given a full episode with an entity that felt more attached and natural, as opposed to putting it into this storyline. Because I feel like
the binary non-binary bit really pissed me off when Donna was like binary, and she went non-binary. It's like, I was like, what was she thinking about it? Like, in the exact moment when they were saying it, was she thinking non-binary? Why? What's happening there? Also, she's not non-binary. It really confused me. I was like, non-binary is not the same as being trans. It's a different thing.
But yeah. But I gotta admit, but that aside though, I did like a lot of the acting from a lot of the main stars. I think Meep was great. It was great seeing Doctor Who budget increased.
Miriam Margolyes was amazing as the voice.
Yeah.
Professor Sprout. Love to see it.
Yeah, and I do like how again, as much as we don't like the overpowered Sonic, and I will agree, I feel like that was so sudden.
Yeah.
To suddenly have the ability to shoot force fields.
Yeah, that section was so, because that could have so easily just been the Doctor points the Sonic into the hallway, turns off their guns, and then they run upstairs and the guns start working again.
Yeah, alternatively, they could have literally just had a gag that could have been a throwback to classic Who, because the Doctor was notorious for having so much stuff in his pockets.
Yeah.
They could have easily just had the Doctor rumble in his pockets for a second and then said,
mini force field.
got these force field pellets from back in my 10th incarnation. Convenient, and they just chucked them out. And
they only last for 30 seconds. Run. But like, I still think like the force field thing complete. Now he's always going to have force fields. Like, that's always going to be a thing now. Like, it's going to really be detrimental to like the story if there's ever any warfare. He's like, well, I have this.
Yeah, it just added to the unnecessary drama of the Sonic can do anything now.
I did like the screen that it made, though. I like that because the Sonic was always supposed to read information, and that's just that, but in a visual like way of presenting it. So I didn't mind that. But the force field thing is that I didn't like that.
Yeah. And what was the other thing? Yeah, talk about the Doctor and the TARDIS. Starting with the Doctor. What are your thoughts on this 14th incarnation in an overall sense? Because in my opinion, I feel like they should have just gone with I don't know how they would have done this, but I just thought they should have just gone with 10 again, because this
But
doesn't feel defined.
They did go with 10 again. That's like in the interviews. They Tennant and RCD said like there would be no point in bringing David Tennant back if he wasn't the same. Like if he did something different, they wouldn't want that. So they did play it as if it was the 10th Doctor. They just put it, put a new suit on him. So in a way, it was 10, just with a new number.
Yeah.
And I was completely fine with that. Like I said, they sort of slipped into their roles again, so it did feel very much like he was back at it again. The only thing I felt this time, and I think I felt it about both of them, is that there were some parts of dialogue that I felt they sort of tried too hard, and I can't exactly think of specifics, but like actually I can think of a specific. Is when Shirley said, I know a word that describes you, and that is jammy. And then the Doctor says, jam on toast, and like stuff like that. And the way David Tennant sort of sometimes just sort of over pronunciates things, I felt that it was way more exaggerated now than it has been, and it sort of took me out a little bit. And Donna did similar things as well. I can't think of any more like specifics, but I felt a little bit like they were trying too hard. But that's really the real nitpicking. Do you know what I mean? Like, trying to be positive that they were great. It's just there were some little things that I found.
I guess, yeah, I agree, because I loved seeing Tennant back at it, and in with that context, it does make sense. At the same time, though, there is a part of me that does feel a bit disheartened, because considering this was meant to be a whole new incarnation, even if it did have the same face, I was kind of looking forward to the idea of exploring Tennant in a completely different light, because considering he's a new incarnation, you think they would have jumped at the chance to. They didn't maybe treat him as more of a darker interpretation, or maybe more of a, I don't know, lighter. They could have gone different several ways, but what we ended up getting was he was just Tennant again, but a bit more open with his feelings. And again, from a meta perspective, it does kind of make sense, considering how long it's been since him and Donna were in action in season 4, and considering they have aged in real life, the actors, it makes sense they would be still the same, but a bit more mature. But in terms of the story narrative, I kind of just feel like they wasted an incarnation just to get. It literally was the service level. They just got David Tennant back for this occasion, and he just played 10 again.
I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they didn't go with a different incarnation, because I think if they just went with something completely different and then he met up with Donna, it would just be weird, because it wouldn't be the Dr. Donna again. It would just be a different character and Donna. So I'm glad that they kept it with 10. It would have been cool to see David Tennant be a different incarnation if the plot wasn't so heavily involved with Donna, and the whole point of this character, of this Doctor incarnation, is to go back to when he felt comfortable. But I'm glad they kept it with just 10.
Yeah, I feel like that's something I'll probably get used to over time. But in the moment, again, considering the 60th occasion, I guess I'm just feeling more in the sense like, go different, go do something out there with this concept, considering the occasion. And I feel like this was the safe option. And I'll give them this. That was what they were going for. They did all right with that. So I feel like it's not something that I'm going to bring to the table in terms of like, you did this, fuck you. It's like, no, it's not something. What they did go with, I thought was okay. But there is a part of me, I think, that will still feel like, you had the opportunity to do this and you could have done this. So why didn't you? But that aside, the TARDIS. We've seen it now, and it wasn't too far from.
It was literally the same as what we saw. It's like the leaked one and the 3D mock-up. It was literally the same.
Yeah.
So we basically saw it before it was out.
Yeah, I'm so glad. There were some slight differences, of course, at the end of the day, because that is the official version compared to the fan image. Which again, I will stress that fan image created. Whoever created that, you are amazing, because you did a stellar job. But the actual version. Again, seeing it in action, I loved it. Although I'm still surprised that the console itself was so bloody big.
Everything was so big; it was massive.
Yeah, it's like they walked on set for a second and thought, "Oh damn, they turned to dolls," because they are so tiny compared to the console now. And I'm just like, I guess it makes sense. They want to make it big, so they would make the console itself a bit bigger. But I'm just so used to the console rooms being a bit more smaller and scaled to the actors themselves. So it was like, oh wow, that took a second for me to process that was so bigger.
It feels very much like, I think we probably said this, it feels like a mix between 10, 11 and 12s in a way, and 11 as in 11's first one, because of all the different like the layers and the stairs and stuff. 12 as in the console is quite hexagonal, and I don't actually 10s. It didn't really seem like 10s. I guess the roundels. Yeah, that's it. The back of the wall felt very similar because it's sort of like just a round dome room. But I loved it.
But yeah, so overall for the first special, I feel like it was all right, but it had faults in it and a direction that it went in a direction I don't think we were expecting, in not the best way. And we will give our finalized results at the end, because we now move on to the second special, Wild Blue Yonder. And this one has the interesting and unfortunate expectation put on it, because this was kept secret. Yes. And we found out since then, I think it was Dr. Unleashed again, that Russell admitted that he deliberately did this just because he wanted things to be different and he just wanted people to be surprised. And he even admitted that this was probably a bad idea, because people expected, considering it was the 60th occasion, they expected it to be the cameo episode where we'd have a variety of characters come back, from every Doctor to previous companions to previous villains. The most notable ones at the time leading up to it was like Susan and the previous 4 Doctors coming back, because even Carol Ann Ford was at the premiere for like the Star Beast and such, so that fed into hopes and expectations. And then just before the episode aired, there was a rumor going around that because I think it was based on one of the clips for the special they released, that maybe where they're going is going to be a TARDIS, or a deformed or decaying TARDIS, and the Doctor and Donna would be haunted or attacked by evilized versions of the previous incarnations of the Doctor, like the 13th, 12th, and 11th Doctors and such. And what we ended up getting was let's just jump into it, I guess. What was your thoughts on the second episode?
When I first watched it, I didn't like it at all. Like, I was really against it. Like, I finished it and I was like, well, that was rubbish. Like, I genuinely thought it was bad. But then I watched some videos of just people talking about why they liked it. Like, because I saw so many people like online being like, oh, I loved it. It was the best episode ever. And I'm like literally saying it was one of the better episodes of Doctor Who that's ever been made. And I was like, everyone seems to love it so much. Why do they hate it so much? So I watched some videos about why people liked it, and then I was like, okay, I can see that. So I went into it for this, watching it for the second time, trying to be optimistic, and I genuinely loved it the second time. It was such a bizarre thing for me to go from absolutely hating it to really loving it. But when I first saw it, I thought it was a very bog standard, run of the mill, like sort of filler episode where it was just sort of like trying to be like Midnight, or old episodes of Doctor Who, sort of like bottle episodes. And I didn't feel like any of the sort of personal dialogue really mattered too much to me. And when it finished, I was like, well, that was a bit rubbish. Like, the ending, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the point of the creatures. I didn't like the creatures. I didn't like any of it. But then I went into it again, and I was like, oh, I do love it, because I think also there was such expectation on it that my I thought it was going to be, my expectation was going to be so great that like anything that wasn't what I wanted was bad. But then I watched it again knowing what it was, and I really enjoyed it. So I liked it for like the sort of little bottle episode that it was, just being like a sort of, it was basically like Midnight, and people genuinely thought that the creatures in it, or the not things, were the Midnight entity. Have you seen that? Like,
I haven't, no.
So there's like a theory that was like the no things, or the non things, the no whatever they are the Midnight entity. So like, because that was trying to find form in Midnight, and this is doing the same thing. So they thought this was it, but actually finding form this time, which I thought was an interesting theory. But I don't think it is. Yeah. I'd like it not to be. But they basically have the same origin, like creatures being like created in not where they shouldn't and then they try to find form by copying literally the same thing as Midnight. But yeah, as a sort of a little mini like its own condensed story, I did enjoy it, and I really, especially, and it was so bizarre. I found this, but when the Doctor was talking about the childless time, the timeless child, and the flux, it made me, and I think it must have been David Tennant, it made me actually not hate it. Like, I don't know, when he was talking about like he doesn't know where he's from, and it actually looked like it hurt him. It's like, wow, a character who cares about it. Like the other Doctor didn't give a shit about being the timeless child. She was like, oh no, I'm not, and then that was it. This Doctor actually cared about it and didn't like it, but he still thinks he's from Gallifrey. Like he said he was from Gallifrey, but he isn't, and and it like deeply hurts him. Which I'm like, oh great, like this is actually interesting. Like it made me think, oh maybe it is interesting that he's not from Gallifrey, but he thinks he is. Like it could bring up future interesting things about it, because obviously they're not going to retcon it. So if they actually follow it in a interesting way, I can actually buy into it now. And then the flux was fine. I didn't really like any of the Chibnall era, but like the flux itself, the concept of it in this episode, it's like, oh, it's a thing that destroyed a lot of the galaxy and the universe, and the Doctor's clearly hurt by it. It's like, okay, cool, development. This is great. I lost my train of thought, but I just think it was cool that they took things that I didn't like and they made me interested in it.
Okay.
Which I didn't expect.
It's nice to hear from you on your part, because I'm actually going to be opposite of that, really. Because for me, I agree. I personally feel like overall, as an episode in general, I feel like this is a perfect, in a good sense, filler episode. This like the Star Beast, this feels like an episode that could have easily slotted in with season 4 or a future season like season 14. But as a special, I personally feel like it didn't hit the landing it was expecting, and that is purely because of the fact that it was not tied to anything lore heavy or multiple Doctors. And I feel like, I know in the interviews in advance they said, oh, the Doctor's not going to be in here, this is like not going to be a multi-Doctor story. And in fairness, they have done episodes before where the Doctor's been like, there's been 2 Doctors or something, but they haven't been special, so they can do it in that occasion. I think off the top of my head, they have every anniversary special that has been made. They've had the other Doctors being involved. So this would be a first in terms of classic Doctors and such. But I personally feel like it was a bad thing not to, because even if they had just gone with their whole theory about it, that let's just have these not things take the form of previous Doctors. And you could have had moments where they're being themselves, but then you get the horror moments. Like you could have had Matt Smith, who is considered to be the most charming and the most youthful interpretation of the Doctor, suddenly become this monster. You could have had Capaldi, who would have been maybe less monstrous, but a bit more calculating.
He would have been really fucking terrifying as an actor. So like, I think he'd be a great monster, a great villain.
And Jodie Whittaker, again, considering that under Chibnall's writing, she could have
give her some fucking meat to chew on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and if they had to bloody acknowledge the timeless child, they could have had her not thing be the one to talk to David Tennant's Doctor.
Yeah.
And we could have had a bit of exchange between those two. And again, there's loopholes to kind of have to explain that. But at the end of the day,
maybe they tried to get them in, but no one else wanted to come in.
I doubt it. I feel like if they would have jumped it. Yeah. At the same time, you might be right. Maybe in some possibility, maybe the actors are too big now, or they've moved on, or they just don't give a shit, considering how Doctor Who's been received these last few years. So maybe they said, "Oh, I'd rather not."
Yeah.
In the most tasteful way possible, I'd rather stick with me. I've got House of the Dragon under my belt. I'm good.
Jodie Whittaker's not in House Dragon, is she?
No, but
I joke.
But yeah, I personally do feel like they needed a multi-Doctor story.
Yeah.
And this fit the bill. That could have easily done that.
We sort of got that in the next episode, though. So
yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But as is, I feel like this was just a very good filler episode. I do have gripes with it though in other areas. I do feel like the CG at points, because it starts off really good, because when they enter that ship for the first time, you think, oh wow, again the budget's definitely increased.
The corridor,
the
corridor was awful.
But as the episode went on, you started to notice it more.
No, I noticed it. It's literally like the sets that they built were amazing. Like when they were in the small rooms, all of those look great. But as soon as they walked into that corridor, I was like, oof, that's an awful green screen. They're literally just on a green stage. There's nothing here. This is like, I instantly took me out of it. And
Okay.
like the lighting was just awful. They didn't look like they were supposed to be there. It did. On the second viewing, I sort of found it a bit easier because I knew it was coming, and I was like, okay, I can like pay attention to them and not worry about the whole thing as in general. But I thought that was awful. And then a lot of the not things, they looked awful as well. Like,
yeah, I mean,
with the sort of weird mouth and
that bit became notorious for me because the moment that scene happened, I immediately thought, oh no, this is going to be gift to hell, or it's going to be made. There's going to be me. All those YouTube videos out there who make thumbnails of scenes from the episodes. I immediately thought this is going to be screen capped to hell. Oh god, that bit later with the Doctor when he just leans backwards and it appears right under his arse. I'm like, oh my god.
That's the bit I like the least because that looked like someone like did that on Snapchat. Like, I mean, people are saying like, oh, the things look like Snapchat filters. This looked like someone had cropped his head on Snapchat or on just like on your phone and then just paste it on something else. It didn't. There was no tangibility. It looked like a floating head on his butt. Like, obviously he was supposed to be like having his whole body twist around, but it just looked like a floating PNG of a head.
Yeah, I mean, considering the high budget, you think they would at least, I don't know, just maybe save some budget to make that look a bit more. I mean, just make you know what they should have done? Either just make a prop of it, or just get a contortionist and just put a David Tennant mask on his face, or just put CG dots on his face and have David Tennant's one be there.
That.
Yeah,
like when he like lean backwards and then scuttle away. Just do that. You don't need to go all the way through. Just scuttle away. I did feel like though that this they had taken away the budget for this episode to put on the first and last episodes. Like the budget for the first and last were great, and then the budget for this, they were like, we'll just do something shitty.
God, yeah. That the CG and some of those bits definitely hindered it, in my opinion, in terms of watchability. Because again, I know we harp on before about how Doctor Who is a show that you don't watch for the budget, but sometimes it does influence interest in it. And I feel like Doctor Who was at its best when it was on a tight budget because they had to be creative. When they have such a high budget, it definitely shows, considering the day and age with entertainment where you just become more noticeable. Like, look at Marvel as an example. They were like, you can watch a lot of the early Marvel stuff and love it, but you watch a lot of their stuff now, it's just CG after CG after CG, location, character, setting, action scene. It's like, you get used to it and you get so bored of it because it's so uncreative. And a similar thing I think might happen with Doctor Who now, where this episode had a lot of budget to it, but you could tell immediately this is a green screen. You could tell this isn't the Doctor contorting. This is just a bad CG head of David Tennant.
Yeah, a PNG of a head.
Yeah, and I feel like on a lesser budget, they would have tried something different that could have made it look more believable.
Well, those like massive hands were amazing. Like they were a real prop.
Yeah,
like, those hands, and they looked like they were scans of David Tennant's hands, and they made them into a real prop, and they were amazing. Yeah, so like they can do it. It's like it's a real sort of juxtaposition in this one where they had amazing things and awful things.
Yeah, that's another thing. Tonal shift.
Yes.
But I'll just add it on this last bit you said there. How better would it have just been if they just had David Tennant put on a green screen suit and just have him crouch down, then get a contortionist to be put in David Tennant's outfit, then have him do the
They did
thing.
that. They did do that.
And no, because they CG'd his head on.
Yeah, but like they did have a contortionist do that. There was an extra who did it.
Oh yeah, but yeah, but have I don't know, just have David Tennant be there, but just have him like squeeze under the head, but wear a bodysuit so they could CG out his body instead of because what it does look like they just CG'd his head into the shot as opposed to just have him be on set there.
Yeah,
I think that might have helped, but that's just me.
Or just don't do that. Like if it looks so bad, just do something else.
Yeah, but what I said, sorry, tonal shift. I feel like that's a recurring thing for this episode. There were tonal shifts because we start the episode off with a cold opening, and that is completely unnecessary to the whole plot with Isaac Newton, who I wouldn't have brought this up honestly, but again, Russell T made a habit made. Would you like to explain it? Because I'm just tired at this point of this bloody song and dance that we have to keep going.
Yeah, we're going to try not to go over it too much because it doesn't matter necessarily, but it's just they did it, so we kind of have to talk about it. They brought Isaac Newton in as like a famous character, The only thing that we had noticed is that he's the wrong colour. Um, as a roundabout way of saying it, like they sort of race swapped Isaac Newton to be I don't know where this actor's from. I think it's English, but like he's
from the behind the
yeah.
scenes. I think he's worked with Russell before.
Yeah, he was on It's a Sin, and I didn't really think much of him, to be honest. Like I don't if he was brought in because he was the best actor for it, great. But I didn't think he was great. Like I thought his line delivery was just a bit stale.
Yeah, and truth be told, I feel like at the end of the day, I can understand the mentality of just get the good actor in for the job, but I think there has to be limitations when it comes to certain characters, especially when it becomes apparent for history characters, historical important characters. Because you brought up a great point off air. Imagine if they did that with Van Gogh.
When we were talking about how in Doctor Who, a lot of the historical characters are very consistently, they try to make them look identical to how they looked in real life. Like the best example is the Van Gogh from Vincent and the Doctor. They literally had a scene where there was a self-portrait of Van Gogh on the wall, and the actor who played Van Gogh walked in front of it as if it's the same, and it looks the same. So like to change it now, it feels like a trend that's happening a lot where they race swap characters because just for the sake of it. Where I don't think it's necessarily necessary. And a lot of people say, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter." It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. So just don't do it. Like,
yeah, it feels very surface level pandering to like, oh, we want to be progressive and supportive for people who probably aren't represented in history. But then we're like, then you do realize that there are people of color in history who have done amazing things in history that should be highlighted. Yeah, why not just do that?
Just bring that character in.
Yeah, don't change the race of this one character just for your silly pandering, because if anything, it sets up. It's basically changing history essentially. And there's a quote that someone said here that I think it was from The Drinker. He does he discussed it as well and his thoughts on it. And someone commented on it as well, and they said this, which I think was quite good. They basically said, history doesn't change because of your wishes. If you misinterpret history, you cannot learn from it. If we go to, that was basically the quote, and I agree. I feel like, why change it just for the sake of today's politics? Because I mean, Doctor Who at the end of the day is a show that started off as an educational show, as a history show, really, for the kids. So I feel like, why change this? And it's I think what's annoying about it is it's such a superficial, surface level reason to do it, because there's so many iconic people in history that want to have their story told. But to do this change, I feel like, one, it's unnecessary. Two, it's surface level pandering, and three, it's just gonna bring up uncomfortable questions, because going forward, like, oh, so is it gonna be okay to change if we ever get Obama in an episode done that again, because he was in
it,
an older Doctor episode with David Tennant, but if we get him back, are you gonna just change his race just because you got the best actor for the job?
No, probably not, right?
Yeah, double standards. So it's like,
but it's like if you get a picture of this character, of this actor as this character, and you say, who in history is this character, you wouldn't say Isaac Newton.
Yeah. And also the fact that it just goes nowhere. They only
all of this complaining, but like, this character's in there for 30 seconds, he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, the only reason he was in there was just so they could set up a recurring gag that the Doctor and Donna change history so that gravity is now presented as Mavity.
Yeah.
And I'm so not in with that. I don't like that recurring gag. I really hope it doesn't become a thing with the next era.
Yeah, it was such a pointless thing. Like, the only thing about that cold open that I did like was that the TARDIS just kept flying around and was in a tree. Like, I was like, cool, that's funny, what a funny visual. But like, if they'd have kept that up throughout the whole episode, but they didn't. It was just one thing, and then they went into the spaceship.
Yeah,
like, if the whole episode was like, or there was like a little montage about the TARDIS doing that, and then it went all different times in history, and there's all these different characters, that would have been cool. But like, and if it had something to do with the plot, but it didn't. It just sort of happened, and then we moved on.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, if the plot was about the Doctor and Donna finding themselves in a abandoned, decaying TARDIS, that was involved with Gallifrey and previous Doctor appearances, maybe it would have made more sense to have the episode open with the Doctor and Donna crashing through history and briefly meeting historical figures and such. As is, with considering the episode we did get, it just feels like an unnecessary opening that just felt like, I love Russell. I love this guy. You worked with him before. Let's get him in for it. Get him in for an episode. It's like, cool.
He wasn't in for an episode. He was in for 30 seconds.
Yeah. What does it add? But what does it add at the end of the day?
What does it add? Yeah. What does it add? Oh.
But yeah, the point with tonal shifts, that cold opening is quite comedic in a sense. But then you immediately cut to the scene after the credits, and the Doctor and Donna are getting out the TARDIS, and then the TARDIS leaves, and they have that genuine fearful moment where they feel like, oh my god, where are we? The TARDIS is gone, and the Doctor has to comfort Donna. That was great. That was a lovely scene, but you just had an opening scene that was presented as comedy. And then after that, later, we get that bit where the Doctor has that one-to-one talk with the not Donna, and talking about Gallifrey and such, and that was like, all things considered, despite the context, it was a powerful scene performed by David Tennant. And he gets that reaction afterwards where he's screaming at the wall, which I thought was great. But then it cuts to the bit with the Doctor and the not Doctor and Donna, and he has that stupid contortionist bit. It's like, oh my god, how can you not laugh at how stupid that is?
Yeah. Those
scenes really clashed, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was. I think they specifically said it was inspired by The Thing, and in The Thing, it's never funny. Like there's a weird shape-shifting monster. It's never a funny thing. But in this, they made it like a joke. And it's like, if they'd have like done proper body horror like it is in The Thing, then it would have been a proper horror episode.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily a massively horror. Like, there was a lot of like creepy parts, and it was like, that was great. But overall, I wouldn't necessarily describe this as a horror episode.
Yeah. If anything, this had moments where you generally they did good with the fear factor of who's who, which is which, but in terms of like the whole episode, it didn't gel enough to feel like it was a horror episode.
Yeah, because
I got more scared from watching Midnight than I did with this episode.
Yeah.
And I might be being brutal and cruel here, but I generally do believe all those people right now saying, "Oh, this was the best episode ever. It was so scary." I personally feel like they've either never watched Doctor Who, and this is just their first time seeing this on screen. They've either not seen it in a long time, so they're just associating a memory they had from Midnight and think, oh, this is like Midnight. I love this episode. Or they just think like it's just as good as Midnight.
If we say it's good, then maybe RTD will like me.
Yeah. And the thing I just have to acknowledge at this point, the fact that they continued and acknowledged the Timeless Child arc, because at the end of the day, we've said it to death at this point. I don't like that arc, and I'll acknowledge it one last time just because I feel like it's the last episode, might as well. But I do not like that arc whatsoever because I feel like it fundamentally changes the Doctor in not a good way. Because the way I've always interpreted the Doctor's backstory is that he was just a normal Time Lord who grew up in a society that was very powerful, very god level, like in control of time and space, and they could do anything, but they chose to observe. But the Doctor, he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to just sit by and see the universe go by because he was like very old by that point. He'd had a kid, he'd had a grandkid. He didn't want to just spend the rest of his regeneration lives stuck on Gallifrey. So he chose to leave, travel the stars, just have an adventure, and he ended up becoming a good person because he chose to be kind and help people and gradually take on companions, fight villains like the Daleks and the Cybermen, to the point where by the time we get to now with the current incarnations, he's revered as this figure who saves the universe. And because he's just kind, I feel like that was such a simple but very powerful story to go by. And to suddenly have the Timeless Child story arc come along and basically say, oh, that's not true. You were actually the chosen one. You were actually this Jesus figure who basically acted as the conduit for every Time Lord who got regeneration abilities ever. And you don't even come from Gallifrey. You're basically this unknown entity from another universe that we're never going to see because it's called Doctor Who at the end of the day. So why do it in the first place? But yeah, they basically just retconned it. And I generally do feel like there's warrant to believe that they did this change because they thought that people could easily just skip over Jodie Whittaker if she wasn't good. So they tried to retroactively change Doctor Who history by saying, oh, the Doctor wasn't always just this white man, and he was basically multiple incarnations with different ethnicities throughout the past. And I can understand a board meeting considering that as an option, but I feel like that is such a disrespectful way of viewing it, because, again, as we said earlier, learn from history and do better from now. Don't try and change history, because all you're doing is lying to yourselves. Worst case, you're basically going to not learn from those mistakes going forward, and you're going to just repeat those mistakes, because if you try to change things, all it does is just set things up for disappointment. And I feel like there was no need to change the Doctor's origins just for the sake of this current agenda in life, in politics and entertainment. And what they've ended up going with is just something that I really wish they would just dismiss, or like just not acknowledge at all. And so the fact that they did acknowledge it and continue it, I wasn't happy about that. And I do agree with you in some sense that at least this take on it, they're acknowledging it, and in some form they are actually reacting to it, because I do think David Tennant did pull off a good performance in his delivery of that moment and his anguish of disliking what happened and the flux and how that affected him. And I can sort of see where this might be going with the next Doctor, which we will get to. But it doesn't change the fact that I dislike that storyline for what it did to Doctor Who history, what it does to the Doctor as a character. And I just really wish they would just forget about it or retcon it out of history, because there's a storyline, at the end of the day, there's a story they could have easily done differently. They could have just had the Timeless Child be its own entity. We did a whole discussion about this. I'll leave the link for people to check that out for context. But essentially, I feel like there was a more powerful story in just having the Doctor, again, who was a female at the time, and what's one of the most strongest attributes that females have in our society? Motherhood. The power of being a mother, to be able to bring life and care for it and nurture it. And I feel like, how cool would that storyline have been if the Doctor finds out there's this innocent child who was abused and taken advantage of by ancient Time Lords? It's probably still out there, considering its ability to regenerate, and that's what we got our powers from. I have to find that child and protect it, and that could have been the whole story arc for the Flux, and that's such a storyline that could have gone in so many directions. But instead, they chose to go with, you're the Timeless Child, all your past is a lie, and your mother, and again, considering the mother, the Doctor's bloody mother, again, I choose to believe that the Doctor's mother was that kind woman in the end of time who helped Wilf and
then did the Weeping Angel thing with the with the face hands in front of her face.
You don't see much of her, but you can interpret from her actions that she cares for the Doctor. She's helpful to Wilf. She wants to ensure that Gallifrey survives, but doesn't become this warmongering race that destroys the universe. She just wants to clearly just help her son. I choose to believe that's the Doctor's mother, and whoever this Tecteun bitch is, that's not the Doctor's mother.
Yeah.
That is just some villain who was masquerading as the Doctor's mother, or generally believed she was the Doctor's mother, but just was being manipulated. Maybe it could have been by the Toymaker, but that's not the case.
I think we should move on. I think this has clearly struck a nerve.
Yes, it has.
Because we talked about this all before.
Yeah, I just, at the end of the day,
just brought it all back again. PTSD.
At the end of the bloody day, I don't like this story arc. I really wish they would change it, but it doesn't look like they're going to. So,
no, they haven't.
Guess we'll have to face that burning bridge eventually.
But let's end this episode of the middle episode on a positive that we saw Wilf again.
Thank God, yes. Oh, thank God, because despite that and despite everything else with this episode, there were some positives, and we got a wonderful ending where the Doctor and Donna reunite with Wilf.
Yeah.
And sadly, it was the only scene that Bernard Cribbins, who was able to film before he passed away, and that is such a shame. But all things considered, I think we got the best situation out of it, because the scene itself was so lovely. We had the Doctor got to get to reunite with Wilf. Wilf got to reunite with him. The Donna got to reveal that she had her memories back, and
it was like the best of anything you'd would have wanted, just like in this nice little condensed scene. And Bernard Cribbins is just Wilf again, and it's like he was my favorite companion ever. Like if you count him as a companion, I was like, yes, Wilf is my favorite.
Yeah.
So it was just lovely to see him again, basically like as he was literally the same mannerisms, the same everything. He was just at Wilf again. I was like,
Yeah.
here he is again. That's nice. It's like a nice hug.
I'm so happy. I'm just happy to see his face again. He was such a lovely character in the season 4, and the fact that we got him back at least for one episode, it was enough to make me smile.
Yeah.
So I will commend RTD for making the decision to do that, and God bless Bennett Cribbins. So now we get to the third special and the last one, the Giggle. So, what were your thoughts on this one?
I bloody loved it. Like watching it and then rewatching it, I thought it was amazing. By that I'm saying like this is just my sort of. I literally watched it yesterday. No, I didn't. I watched it today actually. I watched it again today and a bit yesterday, and then on Saturday when it came out. So we're very soon recording this after we've watched it. So I'm like in the sort of hype of it, and I really loved it. Like Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker, I thought he was amazing. A genuinely like fun villain to have, like menacing, but also like I love it when the villain is slightly like camp and silly, but also terrifying at the same time. So he was great. I love the setting, like Soho in London. Like I work in Soho, so they were in Soho. Was it in the 50s?
1925.
In the 20s, yeah. So like even better. So yeah, like I love that. A lot of it was in the unit headquarters. That was a really great place to have it. The sequence in the toy maker's shop when they were like when the Doctor and Donna was in there and they got trapped in there, that was amazing. That sequence actually reminded me of a couple of things, and both video games. So that the scene where they were in the corridor with all the doors and just running through, there was a plot in the Hogwarts Legacy actually where there was like a very similar mission that was like that, where there was like this sort of a poltergeist that was tormenting you and making you go through all these things. So it was really similar sort of thing. I was like, oh, it's like this my favorite level in this video game. And then when the toy maker's there, like a massive like puppet master like controlling the like life-size Doctor puppet, that was literally like a part in Arkham Asylum with the there's like a bit in Arkham Asylum, the Batman game with the Scarecrow when he's like massive in like a nightmare sort of scenario, and it looked the same as that. So like literally there's like the swirling like clouds above him. It was the same in both. So I love that, just for sort of like nostalgia of that sort of thing. But yeah, I loved it, and David Tennant was great. And then at the end, when they killed David Tennant instantly, like really like suddenly, I was like, oh my god, that's it like the next Doctor's going to come in now. And then they did the thing. I genuinely like, I don't know if we should get into it right now, but I actually really liked that plot point, like the bi-generation. I actually really liked it, and I liked it in the context of the episode, and I liked it as like moving forward. And a lot of people really didn't, but I did like it. I liked it a lot, and I think it's nice that like with the last episode, and the first episode, I disliked quite a lot of it, and it really upset me because I wanted to love it. Like obviously you want to love the thing you love, and this episode I like unapologetically loved so much of it. There's only a couple of like things that I had like gripes with, but they didn't take me out of it really. It was mostly love for this episode, so I was really happy that I could have at least one of the episodes that I genuinely loved, and this was, and I'm glad it was the last one because it's sort of like, to me, it sort of got better as it went along. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would definitely, not gonna lie, it's kind of unfair. I'm probably gonna be a bit unkind to this episode considering I was on a 7-day week work shift, so I wasn't in the best moods when I was watching this episode.
That's not the episode's fault, though.
I know, exactly. But having had time to sit it over, I haven't had the chance to watch it again yet, but I can say after having seen the episode and having time to actually sit down with it, I can say it's definitely more favourable. I would say it's very similar to the level of Star Beast in entertainment, where I enjoyed 40 to 50% of the episode, but there are certain gripes I do have with it still. I feel like some bits with the Toymaker, I think Neil Patrick Harris kills it as the character, and I think he was so energetic and so unnerving when he needed to be, and I loved a lot of those bits. But off the bat, when he had his very thick German accent, I got very bored of that very fast, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
And again, that's probably just down to delivery, but considering he's an American actor, I believe. Yeah. So, but every time he spoke like that, I got very annoyed. But when he talked, I mean, it was a nice juxtaposition, because when he talked with his natural accent, you knew that the character's being serious here. And also, I like that they didn't acknowledge this in the episode, but I like the thing that the fandom highlighted, where it kind of makes sense that he would use different accents, because the Doctor defeated him in the original '60s episode by mimicking his accent, his authentic voice. So it makes sense that he would basically use different accents to throw the Doctor off.
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's cool. That adds another element to that. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think maybe it's because I was watching it on a big screen with my family that it just felt off for me. Maybe if I watch it with headphones in, it would be a bit more natural for me to actually be able to listen to his accent in action. But for a first viewing, it just felt annoying, like he was playing up the accent, which I guess was the intention.
That was the point. But I didn't really mind that. I thought it was quite funny.
Yeah. Another thing that annoyed me was some of the action scenes, specifically when it came to Donna. This happened also in Wild Blue Yonder, but there were a lot of moments where it felt like they were clearly either restricted by the set, or they just didn't. I don't want to say they didn't know how to punch, but there's moments where Donna is just trying to take part in this action scene, and she's just not throwing her all into it. Like, there's a scene in Wild Blue Yonder where she's meant to pick up this wrench and is attacking the hand of the Doctor, and she's so clearly just like going. Ugh,
I noticed that. Yeah, she's just sort of tapping it.
Yeah, it's almost like she didn't want to break the prop.
Yeah.
But I feel like why not make a prop that can last?
Yeah.
And why not just hit a cushion and just have it in CG dots or something?
Yeah.
And with this episode, when she's smashing the dolls, it's like you can clearly tell she's like genuinely not putting as much force into it as you think she could.
I didn't mind that. Like, I did notice that. That didn't really throw me out to it, but I did notice it on the second episode. But this one, I didn't notice it.
Oh, okay.
I quite enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, I think the scene itself was interesting and very creepy.
Terrifying, yeah. When the Stooky wife came out of the Stooky Sue, I think, came out of the shadow, I was like, "Fuck!" I legit when I was like, "Fucking hell, that's terrifying."
And the babies came off the wall. Like, oh, damn it! Don't turn up!
Excellent horror. I love that.
But then they did that bit where she's just bashing their heads in. I'm like,
I thought it was quite funny. That was like to solve that bit, just fucking smash it. I was like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I think that was good, but I just wish that she would again. I think this just falls down to. I think this just falls down to a problem with the prop department at the time. Maybe they just didn't have the props necessary to have her go all out, so they just had to say, just lightly bash it against this prop and just hope you don't damage it.
They didn't. I watched the behind the scenes. They specifically said the set will break before the prop will, so fucking go ham.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Because I haven't had the chance to see the Unleashed episode for Giggle yet.
Yeah. So maybe it was just Catherine Tate's like conviction. maybe
it was a what's the word? What's the thing where how it's executed on TV is different compared to how it was in real life.
Yeah, like the perception sort of thing.
Or maybe I'm just being completely like judgmental on something that I don't know because I'm not in the entertainment business for a reason. But
you're not entertaining at all. I joke.
I heart. But so that was one element that I felt was a bit annoying, but again, it didn't detract from all the good bits. But there were other bits that I didn't like the CG. More specifically, I'm thinking of that bit where the puppet bit with the Doctor puppet.
Oh yeah, I didn't. I noticed it when the first character came up as a puppet. I didn't love it because it was a bit weird that it was just a head on a CG body. I didn't mind as much with the Doctor actually. Like the Doctor bit, I thought was fine, but the other bit I thought was but it didn't take me out of it.
Yeah, it did take me out of it because I feel like, again, if it was a lower budget, I think they would have just gotten away with it by having the Doctor just. Again, they would have either had David Tennant or they would have had a body double do the body thing.
I think that would have been better to just have
and just had painted on lines of a doll face.
Yeah,
I feel like that would have worked better as opposed to let's CG a Doctor's body on just another David Tennant floating head on a CG body. And I'm like, I get what you're going for. You're trying to be very body horror with this. Or this guy's got only his head and the rest of him is just a puppet.
Yeah,
but in execution, we are in the age where you can tell when it's CG, you can tell when it's not there, and this just falls into that trap where we know that's not really there, so it doesn't add to the fear factor. It just kind of takes it away. Like, I'm just looking at a CG David Tennant going, I thought it was clever. And it's like, yeah, if anything, you're not being clever right now in terms of your execution. But moving on, there were some other things. I think that's most of my grabs. I think the only thing. Okay, so getting into some positives, because again, I can't always highlight the negatives. I generally did enjoy the storyline they went with. That the Toymaker was basically like just out there to get revenge on the Doctor because of his past actions and sealing him. And I like how his involvement with everything. I loved the bit when he came through it and out of nowhere the Spice Girls started singing.
Oh my god, what a great scene. That was amazing. Yeah.
Out of all the characters to like go ham in a very like, because again, Doctor Who can be campy. This is the kind of camp I like. It was just like, it's a villain that makes sense who is campy, and he's doing campy things, and it was entertaining, and the song choice was good too. I haven't listened to Spice Girls in years, and out of nowhere it's on Doctor Who, and now I'm like, I like this. I like the song, like the Spice Girls.
Sure, I've never really listened to the Spice Girls, not gonna lie, but sure, I enjoyed the scene.
Yeah, and I love how it's still underlying horror, because you have the Toymaker.
Oh yeah,
if you turn people to balloons,
you killed them. That was them dying. Like it wasn't turning into balloons and then coming back. It was them being dead. Terrifying.
Yeah, and I think it was just it was a fun scene, and everything else with the episode, I liked how the Doctor was reunited with Mel, and
Mel was great in it.
Yeah, they did such a better job reintroducing a classic companion compared to how they did it with Tegan and Ace.
Awful. I also the acting though, like the person who plays Mel.
The actress who plays her was Bonnie Langford.
Bonnie Langford, yeah, I thought she was really good. It felt more like Elizabeth Sladen coming back in School Reunion rather than Tegan and Ace coming back, because I really didn't like them as actors in those episodes.
Yeah, funnily enough, a lot of people have said that I kind of agree with that, where it doesn't really make 100% sense for them to come back and also act the way they did. If anything, Ace is the one that makes the most sense, who would be the most angry at the Doctor, because considering we don't know how she left, but it's implied to be not a nice one. Whereas with Tegan, when she left the Doctor, she literally chose to leave. And people could say, oh, she might have just built up this idea that, oh, why didn't you come back to check on me at least? But even then, that doesn't feel like warranted to like, where have you been? We used to be you. What? I hate you now. Like, it doesn't feel as warranted. In comparison with Mel, she chose to leave again as well. And when she sees the Doctor next, she doesn't judge him. She doesn't like say, where have you been for fucking 10 years or something?
She says hi.
Yeah, she just says, hello. And it's like, again, I must stress, Jodie Whittaker, she just had no reaction. She didn't care. With David Tennant, the moment he sees her, she's like, oh, it's you! And he hugs her. It's like, yes, that's how you want the Doctor to react to seeing old friends, especially those who left of their own choice. It's like, seeing you again, I haven't seen you in years. I'm so happy to see you. It's like, that's how you would react. And
I thought, I really did like her.
Yeah, she was great. And again, she's no Elizabeth Sladen, she's no Sarah Jane Smith, but
a close second for classic companions coming back.
I wouldn't say that, because I personally, again, you can tell how much I care about this character. I still wish I could see Jamie McCrimmon again, or Susan.
But I'm saying actually characters who have come back.
I guess
second to Sarah Jane, because the others sort of came back, but they weren't in it really.
Yeah, in terms of that, I do feel like this is a strong reintroduction to a classic character. I am really curious to see what will happen with her next, considering we know she will be back for the next season. Yeah, and
so maybe that means that they all can come back, because they all finish the episode together.
Maybe that's another thing I'm going to talk about later on in a bit. So was there anything else what you add that you did like or didn't like?
Yes. So I wasn't the biggest fan of. Well, not the biggest fan of, but like, so the point of this episode was that the sort of human race was going mad and killing each other and being all self-righteous, right? That was the whole point of the episode, but they didn't really show it. They showed it at the beginning when they had to get Wilf out, but then that's it really. They showed it a bit on the TV with the
Trinity Wells.
Which was, she came back. I was like, great, she's here again. But apart from that, they didn't really do anything with that. I thought it was going to be a much more like an actual impactful plot point where the whole world is going mad, and there's going to they were going to be in it and going around it and see, or at least seeing it from in all these different places in the world. But they showed it once at the beginning with someone saying I paid taxes, and then the rest was sort of implied. And I thought it was a bit. It didn't really feel like the stakes were there too much, because towards the end I kind of forgot that was happening.
Yeah, I don't know if this feeds into that, but there's also it does kind of feel like it touches on a bit of like real life political nerves to some extent.
Oh yeah,
because
100%.
there's again, the Drinker mentioned this. I just thought I'd acknowledge it because I think he explains it better. But some people, again, some fans have interpreted that RTD is a bit more bitter in terms of how he handles things now compared to before. I think someone said that I think they were paraphrasing what he said in one of his interviews, where he's like, before I wanted to give hope and optimism, but now with this new era I want to be brutal and honest and scare kids or something like that. And again, you can interpret that in either way, but it kind of feels like I don't know, I guess it feels like he's sort of trying to go in a direction where he's not being kind and also not being like optimistic. And that is one of the core things about Doctor Who. It's like, why not continue that? Why try and be like, oh, let's acknowledge real things that people do that are cruel and evil? It's like, cool, but what does that add to the story? What does that add to the world you want to represent? Because you did, again, a stellar job representing humanity in your previous era, but now out of nowhere you've decided to represent the worst of humanity. You even have a whole bit where the Doctor basically disowns humanity.
I thought that was a bit much.
Yeah, and it's like, but there's no resolution to that. It's not like Doctor doesn't even like feel like they can be cruel, but they have their moments. Like, I mean, to be fair, there was a bit where he did do that, but it didn't feel like justifying his whole speech he had earlier in the scene.
No.
So yeah, that's another element from earlier that we discussed about how his involvement in explaining things behind the scenes or his choices, it's not helping the actual stories.
Yeah. I didn't actually notice it when I was watching the episode, but my girlfriend told me like after, it was a very obvious analogy for like the COVID pandemic and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, I didn't even notice that. I just sort of was watching it for the sake of it. I didn't even put it into real life context. But yeah, was watching it back, it's like, obviously.
Really?
Yeah, people thinking that did you not notice it, or did you? I
didn't notice it.
Yeah, you didn't. Neither did I, until you go back and you're like, because it's like people like the armband was like vaccines. And the lady on the thing was Trinity Wells was like, I'm anti that, like as in the anti-vaxxers.
Oh.
And people thinking they're right and refusing to do this, and the government, the riff on the government being like, I'm not going to help you. That was like obviously like such a oversimplification, but it's basically like sort of RTD being like, this is what the government did, because he doesn't like the government.
Oh, charming. So we have to talk about it now at this point, the bi-generation thing. So for me, I don't mind it. I feel like it's definitely an interesting change up for the generation, and I feel like it definitely opened the door for an interesting third act, because we've never seen the Doctor interact with his successor before.
Yes,
and I enjoyed that element.
I loved it so much.
And I personally really enjoyed the whole interaction, how it was resolved. Even if it was rushed, it did feel rushed.
Yeah.
I will not deny that. But I did enjoy it, how it all came down to a ball of catch. And having both Doctors work together was fun. The little banter they had. What I don't like is, again, the implication of the ending with with RTD explaining it behind the scenes that, this is meant to interpret that the Doctor has split with generations before, so every time a Doctor dies previously, they enter a parallel universe where they lived on. Yeah, it's even now I'm trying to explain it. It's very hard to really wrap around your heads about it, because I'm of the opinion of like, look, you have a Doctor. The moment he changes, though, that's it. I feel like had they just done the whole, I wish they hadn't repeated it again, second or third time by this point. But if they just have the Doctor split, but have Ncuti be the official Doctor and Ten be basically a humanized version where he's just got one heart.
That's
again.
what I thought it was. And I was like, oh my god, they've done like the Metacrisis Doctor again. Like
Yeah.
but they basically have done, haven't they?
They haven't, because even though it's essentially meant to be the two of the same Doctors, just the new Doctor's become his new incarnation, and this current Doctor's still existing as he was. So we've essentially got two Doctors now with no changes whatsoever, and I feel like that's going to be a very, very recurring problem to deal with now.
Not necessarily. I was thinking because when I watched the episode again, I noticed that David Tennant, when it was David and Ncuti together, David specifically said, "I'm just a byproduct of the regeneration," like implying that Ncuti is the main Doctor and he's just the byproduct. So maybe that's why I'm saying they basically have done another Metacrisis, because if this is just a byproduct, then I think that means that the way this is the way I'm interpreting that it is that this Doctor can't regenerate and is just this incarnation now from now on. Like I don't think it's going to be two Doctors. I think it's the Doctor and then this byproduct.
Fair enough. For me, I mean, based off what I know at least, I feel like they definitely were going for these are the same Doctors, because, I mean, they've literally got their own TARDISes as well.
That's a bit of a stretch.
And also the fact that, again, because Russell blatantly stated that, I want to create a Doctorverse where you can just have the Doctor team up with another Doctor because they're from any universe.
I would like that, but not the other universe thing. Like if they did like a Day of the Doctor thing again.
Yeah, I'm not against them. I'm not against multiple Doctors meeting up, because it's been shown they can do that. But there's always a lore element to it. Like every time this previous Doctor meets a current or future incarnation, timelines merge, and he has to basically the past Doctor has to forget about those events outside of maybe an echo memory or something. But now, basically saying that any Doctor can be anywhere and meet up, it kind of borderlines on like, it's hard for the human mind to kind of comprehend. So it just makes me feel like confused. I think the surface level element of it is just that, why have two Doctors be in the universe? Because the Doctor himself, well, for one, is everywhere. But at this point, it's just like, if anything, it just opens the door of like, we've got two Doctors now, one of them who is permanently on Earth. So every time there's an invasion on Earth now, why is the Doctor not doing anything to save it? Oh, he's retired. No. Even though the Doctor at this point they stress to say this is a Doctor who has to just live a human life, I genuinely believe that this Doctor, whatever incarnation he would never do nothing.
Yeah.
He would never stay sidelined if the universe, if the world, even if his street, if his own home was in trouble, he would do something about it. So that's just going to open many questions for the future Doctor and Doctors after him to go, why is David Tennant not here? Why are you not doing anything? Why didn't you save us? It's like, you could have just fixed that just by saying, this is now a human Doctor. He can live a normal life, and sure, you will still likely have the problem flag. Why isn't he doing anything? But there's a sense that he won't be here forever. Whereas with this Doctor, is this David Tennant is the 14th Doctor going to regenerate into future incarnations? Is he going to become Ncuti at some point? Is he going to become the creator? The one that's a popular theory right now. But even then, I'm like, I don't like that theory, because I like the idea that is just the Doctor from far in the future. Yeah. That is actually the Doctor at his ending, and he's just retired.
What I did like about it though is that I like the whole point of the reason why this Doctor, the 14th Doctor, looks like the 10th Doctor. I didn't like. It only took me until after I finished the episode. I was like, well, so why did that character come back? And I sort of pictured it together in my head. And it's like, because the Doctor before had so much trauma of like the Flux and the Timeless Child and then everything that came before that. Like this the Doctor had been so much shit that they were like, okay, I'm gonna regenerate subconsciously into one of my favorite incarnations, and then I'm gonna find Donna and I'm gonna settle down. I kind of love that as like the reason why this Doctor came back, and that it bi-generated was like that. All these things is because they wanted this one Doctor to like, and essentially this Doctor and all the other Doctors before it had to rest. This is like their retirement, and now Ncuti's Doctor, because it's like a soft reboot, isn't it? Ncuti's Doctor is like starting from scratch again, and like this is like this Doctor building up from what is left off, but essentially from the beginning. And I kind of like that as a sort of plot point. Is it like this David Tennant's Doctor actually gets to have a happy ending. And it's like, it's just nice. It's an ending for this Doctor for now. And then the next Doctor will go on, and it's two different things. And literally it is two different things because it's the same Doctor but split in half. And so it's two different Doctors, one that can rest and one that goes on from the beginning. And like he said, like the Doctor said, like we're doing rehab in reverse. Like I don't know how to explain it, but like I like that's like a thing that they sort of said. They basically said that like this Doctor can chill out, can be happy. And he said he was like, oh, I've never been so happy because this Doctor's like David Tennant's Doctor's been so fucking like depressed, or every single episode he's ever in, he's just like, I'm so sad, everyone dies, and now he's like, oh, I'm happy now. I'm like, yes, he's actually happy. That's nice.
Yeah, I can agree. I can see where you're coming from. Maybe it's just because I'm cynical. I just, at the end of the day, I liked the idea more that, again, going into the fan expectation of it, I guess I was just hopeful for the idea of the storyline we suggested earlier about what we thought was going to happen with the Toymaker, how it was just about the Toymaker manipulating reality, and I thought the ending would basically be the Doctor kind of accepting, like, look, I've been through some shit, but I need to let go of the past and move forward and accept that some bad things do happen, but there's good out of it, and he accepts to regenerate. And we do kind of get that because the Doctor does like defeat the Toymaker, and he does kind of accept how things are, and he does need to like move forward. But and I will say this, I do, even though they didn't say it the way I thought they would, I do like his last words before he regenerates were "Let's go."
Yeah.
Like Alan Z, like time to move on.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just like not a fan of the Doctor's retired now, because this doesn't, if anything, this doesn't feel like a retirement, because we've got another era to begin, and I feel like it just, again, I feel like I'm very much in the camp of like, you should only have one Doctor around, because the one Doctor's enough. To have two, that's just going to open so many cans of worms for every time the Doctor is on Earth again. Like, where's David Tennant? Why isn't he part of UNIT now? Considering he's like got a job offer.
It might be. If they do a UNIT spin-off, I mean, they've given Donna a job. Maybe the Doctor come back as scientific advisor number one again.
Maybe, but at the same time, I kind of feel like, again, why that you should have the Doctor in Doctor Who. The whole point of spin-offs is to expand the universe and give other characters a chance. If I'm going to see a UNIT show, I would want to see Kate Stewart and other characters.
Yeah, they'll all be in it as well.
Yeah, I just hope that. I mean, if they are, because again, the Giggle does kind of set up a UNIT spin-off with its location and that robot. yeah. So if that does happen, if we do get a UNIT spin-off, I hope Kate is in it and everyone else is. But I hope David Tennant's only in it in a guest role, maybe in like an episode or two, because again, this stuff, it definitely falls in line with the idea that they don't trust the new actors, this new era, so they just want to bring back Tennant whenever they can in case they need an ratings boost. And I feel like you can't always rely on Tennant. It's not fair on the new people. It's not fair on David. And if anything, again, worst case scenario, it's going to make people sour towards his incarnation, because we loved his era for a reason. He had a defining era, and a defining Doctor. If you do anything that detriments that in the now, it's going to sour people's opinion of him in total. So I guess I see the problems more than the answers at the end, the good ones at the end of the day. But yeah, that aside, at the end of it all, I loved Shooty. I loved his bits. I'm really optimistic for his take on the Doctor.
By his bits, you mean him in his pants?
God damn it, mate! I will admit he did look good in the shirt, but yeah, I find it interesting how they didn't do any of the regeneration stuff. He really was just...
No, he was instantly the Doctor.
Instantly the Doctor.
I love that. I think that was great.
Yeah, kind of odd. I hope they don't do that with every incarnation now afterwards. I hope it's just...
No, well, I mean, it depends on... It's different between Doctor and regeneration, isn't it? Because, like, the Doctor going from 9 to 10, he was asleep. Going from 10 to 11, he was pretty much awake the whole time. And then going from 11 to 12, he was a bit manic. And then 12 to 13, I don't really give a shit. And then 13 to 14, he was, fine. So it's been different each time, basically. So maybe the next one he'll be like tired and sleepy and stuff. But this one, he was instantly the Doctor. But it was a different regeneration, so maybe like it feels different to be regenerated this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really did I think Ncuti's gonna be a really great Doctor. I was talking to someone about this, that like he felt a little bit strange, like the acting choices, and my friend said maybe like he feels a bit nervous
Maybe.
because he just started.
I mean, he admitted that he's one of those actors who grew up watching entertainment.
Yeah.
So to be literally on screen
Yeah.
with him, getting the baton from him,
Yeah.
I mean, I probably would be like terrified in my boots, considering who I'm working with.
But like in the trailer for the Christmas one, he seemed a bit more sure of himself. So I think it's a case of the first episode he was like getting used to it, and I think in season 14 he's gonna like really nail the character. But I still loved him. Like whenever he was on the screen, I was like smiling the whole time, literally like beaming, because I was like, this guy's gonna be great. Like I'm so excited for this character. And it's so I've talked to you about this, I think years ago, about how I'd like a regeneration to happen, and I said I'd always love a regeneration to happen basically midway through an episode ish, where like the next Doctor finishes the previous Doctor's story, and they sort of did that in this one. Like when Neil Patrick Harris was like, or when the Toymaker was like, I've faced the Doctor before you, I faced you, and now it's time for the next one. And I was like, cool, they're doing the thing I wanted, where like the next Doctor finishes the first Doctor's like story, but then like it was the two of them together, which I thought still was great. That like, and I loved it that as soon as like the Doctor realized what was happening, or David Tennant's Doctor, he like was excited, and he was like, oh my god, you're me, and they were like, he was really excited to see him, and like sort of enthralled by what he was doing, and then they like hugged, and I thought that was really lovely.
Yeah, that was really fun. It was very endearing to watch, and also just at the end of the day, it was that was a different angle that they did with the other generation that I think was fun. At the end of the day, I'm just, again, with the bi-generation thing, I'm like, it'll probably take some getting used to, but I do disagree with some elements of it. But I do not disagree with anything regarding Ncuti, because as Doctor Who introductions go for a new incarnation, and for one that was so drastically different, I think he definitely stood out in a good way, and I'm hopeful for what is to come with his next era. And yeah, so on an overall thought, what do you think about the 60th specials?
Overall, I wish they were handled differently. Like as a whole thing, I wish they had more connectivity between the three. Like it felt very much like there was 3 different episodes. It felt very much like a condensed series. Like this was the first episode was the introduction, the middle one was filler, and the last one was the finale, rather than it being 3 specials for the 60th. Like I kind of wish that the Toymaker was in all 3, or like he was at least teased in the first one, shown in the second one, and then made a prominent in the third one.
Yeah, generally watching the trailer again for the series, I generally thought there were moments in the 3 special where I thought this is where the Toymaker should come in, or this is the moment. I mean, that shot where the Toymaker's like, we pan upwards and we see him puppeting the doll guy. I generally thought that was going to be a scene from episode 2, where the Doctor was just like wandering through the ship after he lost Donna, and out of nowhere he looks up and he sees the Toymaker doing something, and he's like, what was that? Oh, it's just my imagination, just because I'm being claustrophobic or something. Like, oh, am I claustrophobic now? Yeah, I feel like that was something that probably would have happened, but no, he's just in the last special.
No, he's not. Yeah, and I wish that there was more of an emphasis on. Like, I kind of wish the whole thing was about the Dr. Donna and the Meta Crisis. Like, if the whole 3 episodes, or 1 episode at least, was made about that, and like explaining it and resolving it, like rather than it being the end of 1 episode, I thought that it would have been. I just don't like the writing of that particular plot, and like I feel like it apart from the last one where it does feel a bit more epic. It didn't. The first 2 didn't really feel like specials. They felt like episodes, like run-of-the-mill episodes, which isn't not necessarily an awful thing. It's just as a celebration of Doctor Who, it didn't really feel like one.
Yeah, in my opinion, I definitely feel a bit more on the negative side. Maybe that is just because of the timeless child stuff. Maybe that is just because of how the expectations weren't met based off what we expected. I personally do agree. I feel like these episodes, as they are, they're all right. They have bits of it that I wish they had done differently, stuff that I know is going to turn a lot of people's interest off or hopes off. But all things considered, they did, for a new introduction era for the show, I think they did okay. But I do feel like it was detrimental of them to make these 60th anniversary specials, because again, there's so many expectations to Who when it comes to the anniversary, and considering this was 60 years, in my opinion, The Day of the Doctor was a far more anniversary episode compared to these three combined, because at the end of the day, these three specials feel more like a highlight reel of the RTD season 4 era. They don't have much, even though they try to sort of wrap up the whole Doctor Who storyline with the Giggle, with him like retiring. If anything, it just feels like, again, it's more tied to the core of David Tennant's incarnation rather than the Doctor as a whole. And for me, also the fact that they just continue the Timeless Child, it just doesn't really feel like this is not how I want things to end. And yeah, going into, I guess in an overall sense, I feel like I agree. I think it could have been way better. And if anything, it's got me interested now to think what's going to come, not only next, but what will come for the next anniversary. Because whoever's going to be in charge by the show, or if the show's even still going by then, it makes me now wonder, are they going to try and go for the 70th anniversary?
Or
61. 70. But if when they get to that anniversary one day, are they going to go a similar route, or are they going to try and go for the route we hope they will go? Where let's have every current Doctor, whoever's there at the time, and whoever's still around, let's have them team up for an adventure, which I kind of hope they because a part of me somewhat is annoyed that we're not going to see, at least for another decade, we're not going to see Eccleston. Well, we'll probably never see. We'll see Eccleston, but we're never going to see Tennant, Smith, Capaldi.
Well, they might come back. Like the first Doctor was in the 12th Doctor's last episode, so they could do it in like specials that aren't anniversary based.
Maybe we'll get that 20th anniversary special for the revival show or something. But even then, considering their marketing Shooty's era as season 1 again, I feel like they probably won't.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, they might do spin-offs though. Like that's the thing. David Tennant might be in a spin-off of Unit or in their own spin-off with Donna.
Yeah, but then again, that's the thing. It's like there's a spin-off. I mean, talking about the main show, I'm looking forward to the day, likely in the 70th, when we'll get to see every existing Doctor from the revival era share the screen. Because I think that's something that that when you have the opportunity to, you should take that chance and do it. And I don't give a shit about expanded media like comics and such.
They did it in the episode before. They're doing The Power of the Doctor. That was the closest we're going to get, I think.
Yeah, and it wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, actually, that scene was fine. Like,
oh yeah. I will correct myself. That bit was good.
Yeah, the scene on the edge.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, it was just in an era that I didn't like, with a Doctor that wasn't the best, and being written by a guy who, for some reason, can't write good dialogue, but he can write okay dialogue for those bits.
That's the thing I've said before. Chibnall can write dialogue for characters that already exist. He can't write his characters for new, well, especially for Doctor Who. He could do Broadchurch, which is weird, but not Doctor Who. He can't introduce new characters in Doctor Who and write good dialogue for them, but he can do good dialogue for old characters that already exist.
Yeah, that's another thing I think we should at least acknowledge. Another thing, because RTD came out that he's not going to retcon the Timeless Child, and he's just going to go with it. And his excuse was that, because Chibnall's a friend, and I don't want to disown him in that regard. I feel like, again, Drinker talked about it. I agree with his stance there. That just makes you a bad friend, because if you're a Doctor Who fan, you should know how much the fandom dislikes that retcon. And the smart move would be to openly acknowledge that, we're not doing that. Or at the very least, we're going to change that.
Yeah, and we're not acknowledging it and don't mention it again.
Yeah, but basically, do the smart thing, and behind closed doors, just explain your reasoning why. And if he's a good friend, Chibnall would say, "I understand." But in this case, it feels very selfish. And again, it's hard to gauge people and entertainers. But at the end of the day, it just feels like. This is a story that not a lot of people liked. You should think about the best situation to deal with that. And he's in the end, what's going to happen, likely based off what's been set up with these 3 specials, is that going forward with the next era with Shooty, they're going to basically reveal this is basically going to become the new Gallifrey, where the Doctors, like in his first era, the Gallifrey was destroyed off screen, so the Doctor's now the last of his kind. In this new era, it's likely going to be, I'm not from anywhere. I'm alone in the universe, because I'm literally not from this universe. And I can see what they're going with. The whole, again, this is a wanderer, a stranger in a world that's not his own. But again, the fact that it was born out of this storyline that I don't like, that means it's always going to be there now. It's going to be in the back of my head saying, the Doctor's not from here. He's not from Gallifrey. All that stuff in history is not true. It's like,
I think I think we should like try and wrap up the Timeless Child stuff because we talk about it all the time.
but to be fair, we are still talking about Series 14.
I think
that's definitely a thing that's going to be acknowledged in the show, which is what I didn't want them to do.
I think what they might do though with that is like the Doctor is still from Gallifrey. Like they can't take that away because the Doctor grew up on Gallifrey and like made all his memories from Gallifrey. So I think if they do bring it up again, they'll be like, the Doctor will be like, I am still from Gallifrey. Like that's not like he said it in the 60th. Like that's where he's from. Like because that's where he was raised. So he could technically be from there, even though that's not where he was born or where he like his origin is. He was still from Gallifrey because that's part of his soul and his character. So I think that's what they might go with that angle. But yeah, I agree. They should have just been like, I'm from Gallifrey, and then leave it there.
Yeah, and we also know from talking a bit about the coming up as Christmas special, they confirmed a bit about the premise, and they did confirm that Ruby Sunday, her character, is going to be an orphan. So that's probably
it could like
tie into it.
Tie in,
yeah. And again, I feel like that can lead to some interesting directions and promising acting and development and of a friendship between the two. But again, it's just always going to be in the back of my mind now, like, I don't like that talk, and you're continuing it. But overall, in a bit of a wrap up, yeah, I think the specials left a lot to be desired because I feel like they were more of a highlight for R2D's era in Series 4 rather than the whole era history of Doctor Who. But as far considering how bad Doctor Who has been these last few years, it was better than it could have been. But at the same time, I still am of the opinion that you can be so much better, and I feel like this is going to continue in with the next era, and it's really just going to be down to the actors, really. Like, you've got good writing under your belt now. I just have to hope now that the good writing will outweigh some of the story choices, because it's saved it so far. But again, for all we know, season 14 could come and go, and it won't be good, and they can't do anything about that because they've already started filming series 15. And they'll probably be filming season 16 by the time by this time next year. So it's going to be an interesting era going forward, considering what's likely going to happen, how people are going to react to it, and if it is badly received, like you're 2 seasons ahead.
Yeah,
mate.
I thought the same thing. They've got a while to change it.
And just talking about one more thing about the next era. Because we talked about Ncuti's costumes, we've talked about what the TARDIS looks like, and a bit of the companion and what the dynamic will be, but we now know that he's getting a new Sonic. And what are your thoughts on the Sonic?
It's different. I'll say that. It does look very, very different to what we sort of come to know as Sonic being a cylindrical device. It's more like a sort of
TV remote.
I've heard lots of people say TV remote. Some people say butt plug. I think it looks a bit like a sort of toy, like spy phone, because I think it bits of it flip around, and I think the
kind of like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, I think on this that has thing is though that I hadn't thought about that. It is a Swiss Army knife. The Sonic has been described as a Swiss Army knife before, so like in a way great, but also it looks stupid. I think that bit of it flips, so it just sort of becomes a disc.
Yeah.
So I think it's it's a departure for sure, but I don't know if it's a good one yet. I think I'll have to get used to it, but like I'll get it when it comes out as a toy. I'm gonna get it. Yeah. But I think it's just it is a bit. It's so confusing because it looks so different, and I don't know what they were going for. But the thing I do love about it is that the Gallifreyan symbols on it is actually a proverb from Rwanda, actually, which is where Ncuti was from, and the proverb is the sharpness of the tongue defeats the sharpness of the warrior, which I think that's a great thing because it's personal to the actor, but also that quote is a very, very much a doctory thing.
Oh yeah, I love that quote, and I agree with you. I think the design is very different. In my opinion, I don't like it in the sense that it doesn't look like a screwdriver. because
but neither do all the other ones. Like I've said this. Someone said the exact same point to me, but I don't think any of them look like a screwdriver.
but even in the basic sense of like it's a very thin object. Because I can buy it's a sci-fi element of like I can buy that a futuristic screwdriver would look more like just a thin piece of metal with a bulb at the end. That's a bit more believable to me than here's this TV remote. This is a sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, here's this flip phone.
Yeah, it does look more like a sci-fi flip phone or one of those communicators from Star Trek. Really, I'll say this: I like the color choice.
Me too.
It's a lot more eye pleasing compared to Jodie's one.
Yeah.
and I like the aesthetic of it having multiple things like a USB port or something they said, and the fact that they have those cool promos on it.
I think there's like a magnifying glass in it.
Yeah, it looks good. I just wish that the design itself was a bit more thinner, a bit more looked more like a screwdriver.
What a lot of people have said as well is that it would have been great if maybe this Doctor didn't have a sonic screwdriver and this was a different gadget.
Yeah, again, just go. I think we touched on this before. Just go the third Doctor route where he has a screwdriver, but don't use it so much. Just have the Doctor rely on his wits and his mind to solve situations, as opposed to just here's a sonic. Let's have him do everything with it.
Or just it be a different gadget completely. Like have it be something that the Doctor uses, but it's different. Like how the New Who brought in the psychic paper. That's a new gadget the Doctor uses. This could be another new thing that Doctor uses, but it's just the sonic screwdriver that doesn't look like it, like the other ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are going to be different going forward, and despite our hang-ups we did have with the previous era and with the free specials, I am hopeful still. There's a part of me that is still clinging to hope because it has a lot more chance now compared to before. Because despite his faults behind the scenes and how he's presented himself, I think Russell does have a good talent, a skill of writing compared to Chibnall. I just hope that, again, I think he is aware in some form. I just hope he can, in a sense, either come to accept what people are saying and maybe he'll try and correct course or find a way to find the best in both situation and retcon or do anything that makes things a lot more easy to enjoy. But as is, it feels like it's going to go in a direction that's either going to be beneficial for the future or it's going to just ensure its ending in the next few years. But I'm going to remain optimistic for now because as things go, it could have been a far worse cry from what we ended up getting. And at the end of the day, Doctor Who will always have a special place in my heart. And that's not going to go away. But I just really wish that they would the people behind the show would try to understand where we're coming from with why we don't like how things have gone. And this is a very short chance at it, but to anyone who ends up becoming one day the next showrunner after RTD, if it's still going by then, I just hope they try and understand our side of it and why we don't like these storylines and certain choices. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't really say that because they were all fans before anyway.
Yeah,
all the showrunners have been fans and they know what they wanted and what they didn't like. Chibnall was we've talked about this before. It's the funniest thing because he was very vocal about why he didn't like Doctor Who, and now he's made Doctor Who shit.
Yeah,
he did. So now he's gone.
So if anything, I just hope that the next generation of filmmakers who are going to likely take over will. That's what. No, you lost me. But yeah, I do agree because it's kind of a similar ballpark in positions, but again, I just feel like there are ways to get around it to do better, and I think there are people out there who will hopefully see that compared to how I think things are going now. But we'll see, I guess. And yeah, so that officially wraps up the Doctor Who side of things. Do you want to add anything before you finish up?
I'm very optimistic for the future because the trailer for the new Christmas special. It looks interesting. The goblins look really cool. Like I think that the CGI or whatever they've done for that, they look really like authentic or like really like realistic.
Saying that, maybe this is just my personal opinion. Maybe I'm just getting flashbacks to Baby Yoda, but I kind of feel like the CG tries to portray them as too cute.
I don't think so because they look fucking horrifying. Like they look disgusting. Like so.
I mean, the big one does look scary.
The big one is
uncomfortably scary in the awkward / kind of creepy way.
Did you listen to the song?
Yeah.
The song is about eating babies. Like it's a horrible shit song, but like it's very funny. And I think that's the point of it. Like it's not supposed to be a banger because it's not a fucking.
Yeah.
It is funny.
I guess it's meant to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And Millie Ruby Sunday's line delivery at that bit at the end, which is like, let him go. It's like a bit awkward.
Yeah,
But saying that,
it does look like a good episode, and I am really excited for it. And it's only in 2 weeks. It's Christmas. It's great.
Yeah, I love talking about the trailer, but I do love that bit where the Doctor's just running off the rooftop and he jumps out onto the ladder.
Yes.
And I'm really excited to see what they do with this first episode.
Yeah, and like when they pop up, when the head pops up and all the goblins look at them and they're like, hi.
Yeah, I feel like that could, again, we're just judging this off a trailer. I hope it's taken a bit more seriously in some areas, because again, that bit where you've got them just smiling and saying hello, and you've got Millie's character again also just smiling. I hope this isn't her first interaction with the goblins. I hope she sees them earlier in the episode and she's like, oh shit, what are you?
Yeah.
Because again, I feel like Doctor Who, when it needs to be scary, it can be very more immersive. So yeah. I hope that despite it being a Christmas special, I hope they try and treat this as like, oh, these are goblins you're looking at.
Also,
Scream.
It's like the Disney-ness of it, where it's like Disney Marvel, where it's like there has to be a joke all the time. It's like, I hope they haven't got that here.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to at the very least. I hope it's good. And with that, we can wrap up officially now, because I did have this big plan to have a whole big subject to talk closing us off. But honestly, looking at the clock right now, for us, it's quite late, and we both got work tomorrow. So we're going to wrap this up now. But I would like to end it with a bit of acknowledgement for us, because we sort of did it in the beginning.
Yeah, I think we covered it a little bit in the beginning, but yeah.
Yeah, I think this officially, if it hasn't been made clear already, this is the last episode for Grey Owl Entertainment's podcast series. We've been doing this for 5 years now, over 100 episodes. Or I say over. This is the 100th episode.
That's amazing how we've gotten exactly 100.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of it. Are there things that I wish we'd done differently? Yes. Are there things that I'm sad we didn't get to do? Yeah, because I still remember the first some of the early discussions that we were going to have but never got around to having. Like, I remember from season 1, we were originally going to do 10 episodes, but we didn't have time, and I was like not experienced in editing and a lot of the stuff, so I didn't have time to produce those episodes. I just stuck with the 8. That kind of worked out in the end, because it feels like a normal series, like just get 8 episodes, and then from then on we did the 20 episode format. And we only did 10 for 2020 because of 2020. but yeah, I like that we got to get into the groove of doing 20 episodes a season, and that guaranteed we'd reach the 100 episode mark.
Yeah.
And there's also, I still remember this is your idea. You wanted to do a discussion around season 2 where we would talk about Marvel, and you specifically wanted to talk about, let's talk about a Marvel film that teams up Doctor Strange with Spider-Man. And we talked about that for weeks. We never got around to filming it because of life and all that jazz. And lo and behold, a few years later, we got Spider-Man No Way Home that had the two team up.
The dream movie. And it was a fucking good movie, so...
Yeah. Yeah. God, that would have been such a good episode to capitalize on that. There's also a lot of things that didn't get to the screen, because, funny enough, when Grey Owl was in its early stages of pitching, it was actually going to be completely different. I've briefly touched upon this with you before, but for a bit of context for you and the audience, originally it wasn't just going to be like movie commentaries and discussions. Originally there was going to be a full-on storyline, fictional storyline happening concurrently with the episodes. And the basic premise was that me, you, and Lennon, we were the main stars, the main characters. We were playing fictionalized versions of ourselves, and we were basically going to be transported to this other dimension that just looked like a forest in the mountains, and there was this lone cabin there that was our home base. So that was where we would record the episodes. And basically, the story arc was we're stuck in this other dimension. We have to get out. What do we do in the meantime? Let's just talk about movies. And we'd be attacked by like entities, like evil creatures that just look like monsters, and I would have done something with that. It would have been cheaply made, but heck, the concept sounded interesting. And we would have had a companion in the form of a sentient owl, like a talking owl.
What colour would it have been?
I don't know. I just envisioned it to be a
a grey owl?
I know grey owls are literally different to the name, but I basically borrowed a book from that long-haired creepy guy. He's a YouTuber, and he does movie reviews. And I discovered him through Deca Shadow, who's another movie review that I like watching. And he basically had this stick with his episodes on YouTube where he would have a Cthulhu plushie that would talk, act as a little mascot for his character. And I thought, oh, we could do that, where we've got our little owl mascot to serve as our little mascot for the episodes. And he would basically be a little companion who would, for some reason I had it in the notes that he would dislike us, but he would really like Lennon's character for some reason, because he was good with animals, I guess. And yeah, his story arc was that he was this omnipotent being that was just bored with life, but he saw us and interact with movies, and he's like, I like these guys, all hang out with him. And near the end of it, the story arc would literally end with us getting out of the universe, back to our own timeline, our own homes, and he would die sacrificing himself to save us, because he grew to appreciate us as friends, and that would have been like the emotional story arc, I guess. But that was like the through line plot line that would have accompanied Great Owl's normal format.
That would have been a bit bizarre, I think, to have like a proper like a character arc and emotional beats, as well as us just having our own opinions about Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it never went anywhere because, as you said, it was very bizarre. And honestly, I feel like we didn't have the skill. No. I say we, it was mostly me. And at the end of the day, I didn't have the confidence and the skill to execute it well. So in the end, I thought, let's just put that to the wayside and we'll just focus on the stuff we know we can do, which is discuss movies and entertainment, because that's what we like to talk about. And a part of me is a bit disappointed that we never got around to doing that, because there were some interesting concepts that I think in more skillful hands could have been done justice. But in a way, it is still acknowledged, because if you've watched this channel enough, in certain intros, you will notice a little owl. And in the actual banner on the channel, you will notice a cabin in a misty forest that looks tad familiar if you've just listened to the whole description. And in a sense, the character of the owl, who was going to be nicknamed Willow, just because it was associated with willow trees. The character was going to be called Willow. He in a sense, he did make it onto Grey Owl in a way, because he's appeared in every single episode
he's in there all the time.
of Let's Talk. So in a sense, I'm glad he got to stick around in that regard.
Wow, it's like lore.
There's in-depth lore, and the fact that we planned 6 seasons as far back as the beginning of season 2. There's a lot of stuff that happened, but in the end, we made it. We got there in the end. We got to season 6. We got to episode 100, and now that's it. We're done. So
fuck off. We've had enough for you.
No, we've loved all of you. All of you who've been there with us since the beginning, those of you who've subscribed and stuck around with us and enjoyed the content we have, thank you so much for everything. For just taking the time out of your lives to give our little channel a watch. And to the over 300 of you, I couldn't thank you enough. And I'm forever going to be grateful for this experience, and forever going to look back on it fondly with memories, because I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed doing the episodes with you, Harry. I've enjoyed doing the episodes with Lennon and everyone involved. And I'm really curious to see what's going to come next for us, because in a sense, I won't be gone from YouTube for long, because I have some ideas that could go somewhere in the future, but I definitely intend to take a break for now. I want to enjoy a bit of life more, see where things go. But you might see me again at some point. But in terms of podcasting, this is the end. And it's been one heck of a journey. Thank you. Goodbye.
What's up, bitches? It's your boy.
God, can you believe it, mate? We've been doing this. God damn it. I swear, this is why I always stress we should eat and wait a bit before we do these recordings, or afterwards. But today we couldn't. But God damn it.
We've been doing this for...
Oh, God. I mean, it's been a while since we did a blooper reel. So
I was going to say, this could go in the end blooper reel. That'd be great.
Oh, perfect.